Welcome back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway here as we are getting set for our coverage of Happy Hour, the final practice session. And we apologize for some technical difficulties taking place across town at O'Reilly Raceway Park. The century-old Indianapolis Motor Speedway has been called the world's greatest race course. And for good reason. This place is so steeped in history and tradition. Earlier today, the stars of NASCAR went out to qualify, and an ailing Dale Earnhardt Jr. clicked off a great number in his brand new Chevy, good enough to put him third on the starting grid. How about a former Indy 500 winner, Juan Pablo Montoya? Could he become the first driver to win both big races at Indianapolis? He started second as a rookie here in 2007. And 50-year-old Mark Martin, early in qualifying, goes out and puts up a number that no one can touch as Martin becomes the 13th different driver to win the pole for the Brickyard 400. We are standing by for live coverage of NASCAR Sprint Cup Happy Hour. The changeover ongoing down in the garage area. Teams are hustling to change these cars over as Mark Martin watches and waits and got to wonder, what is he thinking about? He doesn't like to think about what tomorrow could bring. He has tried to live one day at a time since coming out of semi-retirement to be the winningest driver here in 2009. Well, let's go down to the garage area and hear from Vince Welch.
Well, Doc, Dale Earnhardt Jr. needs to get well, and I'm talking about get well physically because he has been sick throughout the course of the weekend. In fact, he has a stomach virus that's required him to take IVs to stay hydrated during this weekend. So while he's been uncomfortable out of the race car, I just spoke with Lance McGrew, the crew chief of this team, and he said their goal in this practice is to get Dale comfortable in the car, but they're not going to overwork Dale Earnhardt Jr. because they know they have to have him full strength tomorrow. Jamie?
Well, Vince, another guy who's had an awful weekend, and that's how he said it earlier in qualifying, is Carl Edwards. They just haven't found the speed in this car. Practice, they went out, they were in qualifying trimmed, and they went out and race setup, and the car was just slow. Carl's shaking his head. He went out, he turned a couple of laps in qualifying. He was 41st. All I can say is thank goodness for that NASCAR rule that the top 35 in owner points is guaranteed, because he got in on owner points. Now, as crew chief Bob Osborne, I just talked to him, he said this car is faster than what it showed in qualifying. They have 90 minutes to turn things around and get up to speed where they need to be. Dave Burns?
Jamie, Kurt Busch has one of the fastest cars at the Speedway this weekend and a chance to win for the first time at Indianapolis. But in qualifying, his car was a mess, bouncing up and down through the corners. It did not look like a winning race car. Here was his qualifying lap, guys, and it just didn't look good at all. And so, therefore, you wonder whether the car is ready for Kurt during this session. The answer is yes, because the setup that was on it for qualifying has been taken off that race car. But when you dig deeper and try to find out what was wrong with the car, you get kind of a blank answer from crew chief Pat Trice. And I gave him one more chance. I said, Pat, are you sure you don't want to tell me what it was so we can get it right? He goes, I'd rather not say. So let's do something with our experts in the Craftsman Tech Garage. That would be Tim Brewer. Let's go down there, Brewer. And what do you think that might have been that caused Kurt's car to be so bad?
Thanks, Dave. These guys run extremely soft front springs in the car, and when they set down on the bump stops, anytime the shock bottoms out, the thing can have some rebound. Well, if the right rear spring's extremely stiff, it's going to cause the car to bump back and forth. There again, that would what I hope it is. But there again, if you leave the shock absorber loose and that thing has no dampening forces to control the bounce, you know, that might be the bad side of it. That might be why Pat's not elaborating on what possibly went wrong.
Thank you very much, Tim. And certainly Kurt Busch did a great job of hanging on to that race car. He had a bucking Bronco out there on the racetrack. Hello, everyone. Glad to have you with us for our live coverage of NASCAR Sprint Cup Happy Hour. I'm Jerry Punch, along with three-time Brickyard 400 winner Ray Evernham. And if you're wondering where Andy Petrie and Dale Jarrett are, they have moved over to begin working for a Sports Center special that will be coming up later on tonight. Now, I want to talk with you a little bit about what's going to happen here at Happy Hour. You won this race twice with Jeff Gordon as a crew chief. once with Bill Elliott as an owner. What do these guys need to know? Give me your laundry list of need-to-know items here in this happy hour session.
Well, sure, Doc, but first let me say, I know the rain screwed things up today, but it's been good for me. I'm having a great time with these guys at ESPN. They're absolutely the hardest crew working here are the ESPN guys. But, you know, what the guys are looking for today, some of them are looking for final adjustments, their final shock adjustments, their final tire pressure, accurate fuel mileage, front-end settings, minute things. You know, your top 10 guys have really got the package. They're just dialing it in to win the race. There are some guys that really haven't hit it yet, and they're looking for the Hail Mary. They still haven't found that overall package. So we're going to see guys just doing fine adjustments and some other guys throwing some pretty big things at these cars.
The Goodyear tire is really, really good here. So now that's going to add a whole different degree of strategy on race day. You're going to be able to gamble maybe on no tires or even 2 tires.
Well, that's a good point, because what you're going to see, again, the guys that are good, they're going to find out how far they can run on one set, and then how big of a difference if they just put 2 right sides on, or if the left sides make a difference. Now, speaking with Rick Campbell at Goodyear, they gained a lot of grip on the left side tire, so that tells me there's going to be left side tire wear, so we might not see as many 2-tire stops as we think tomorrow.
And these guys also you saw them putting gasoline in the 5 car, and you see the guys getting ready for Joey Logano here. Fuel mileage, very important with Goodyear tires being so good. How far can you go? You saw Jimmy Johnson a moment ago. He lost one a few weeks ago because they couldn't go the distance on fuel.
Yeah, and you'll see everybody will try and do a few mileage run, and today, again, in race trim with everything on tape, you know, they've been doing qualifying runs. They'll be in traffic. There'll be 43 cars on the track at the same time. So this will be your most accurate time to get a fuel mileage reading.
Okay, cars are going to roll at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. So remember, this is the final time they will be on the racetrack here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway until we roll the green, wave the green flag, I should say, Sunday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. Live flag-to-flag coverage of the Brickyard 400 presented by Golden Corral, beginning with NASCAR Countdown. Back with Happy Hour in just a moment.
Now stay tuned for the greatest spectacle in racing.
This is sacred ground. The most historic track in American history.
We'll win the Indianapolis 500.
A place where legends are made.
Where glory can be attained.
Where reputations are cemented.
And here's the checkered
A
flag.
win here etches your name forever in racing history.
This is Indy.
This is the Brickyard. When you have the feeling of standing out on the front straightaway at Indy, it really sets you back in time. This is a special place to win, and you want to be part of history.
Still driving into the racetrack now after 8 seasons. I pull in and it just grabs you. You know, there's something about the track that just grabs you.
We're guests at a racetrack with a really, really rich history.
All the racing greats that have experienced that yard of bricks, that's what makes it special.
I remember my father taking me to qualifications. Going there and seeing those cars run that quick was something that just was mind-blowing to me.
The first time I drove out onto the track, I told myself this is Indy, and it was overwhelming at the point where I think I was dead last on the speed charts.
I saved my first on-track experience at the Brickyard for being in a race car. I just thought it would be cool to roll out, and the first time I went across the yard of bricks was at 200 miles an hour.
When I get asked, what's your biggest win, which one stands out to you, I always say the inaugural Brickyard 400.
Jeff Gordon is about to write his name in the racing history books.
That always will be the biggest win of my career.
There's so many stories about people that should have won at Indy that didn't, and triumph and tragedy there, that it just makes winning a race there very, very special. Nobody backs into a win at Indianapolis. It's just one of those places that you have to earn the wins there. They're not given to you.
There's like the ghosts or the trouble that lurks around every corner at Indy that can snatch victories away from even the greats.
The walls typically come at 90-degree angles, and when you crash there, you crash hard.
You know, I'll never forget watching Jimmy Johnson, that 48 car. He blew a tire and hit one of those walls, and man, he hit a ton.
You okay, Jimmy?
When something does go wrong, it goes into like super slow-mo, and the sensation that runs through your body before you make the impact is pretty bizarre and odd. So at that point, you know, fear is through every inch of your body. It took me many years to get that track figured out. I had some big wrecks and a lot of trying times, but eventually we got it right.
Checkered flag is in the air. Jimmy Johnson wins at Indianapolis.
Kissing the bricks, I guess, is the second generation of drinking the milk.
Started by Dale Jarrett. When he won that race, went out and kissed the bricks at the start-finish line and created a movement that will always be remembered.
I think every driver went, yeah. I don't care how dirty, gritty, nasty those bricks are. If I win that race, I want to go down there and kiss those bricks too.
You can be a nobody, win at Indy, and you're an American icon from that day forward.
Winning Indy in any form of racing because of the history, it goes to the top of your resume. It's a monumental moment.
The Brickyard, to me, it's everything. It's the place we want to win the most.
I can't believe I've won it 4 times. Can't believe I won it once. It's one of the most unique tracks we go to, most prestigious, the one with the most history, and the one that everybody wants to win.
This is Indy.
This is the Brickyard.
"67 different drivers have won the Indianapolis 500. Only 9 drivers have won the Brickyard 400. There are so few venues around the world that on a given day once a year, a hopeful can become a hero, and a hero can become a legend. The drivers know that tomorrow their name could be etched in the record books forever at the world's greatest race course, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Roush Fenway has never won here. How important would it be for Casey Kane to maybe go to victory lane? And Ray Evernham, you know the feeling of going to victory lane here 3 times. You won the very first one here with Jeff Gordon. You won it again with Jeff Gordon and went there as an owner with Bill Elliott. Share with us some of the memories of how special those days were.
Well, Doc, just look at the champions and the winners that were just in that feature, and them telling you how important it is. These are guys who have won every major race and multiple championships. It's an unbelievable feeling when you come in here. It's like being at a high school pep rally. You want to on race day when those bands are playing, you want to go busting out of a thing like a football team. It's a feeling I can't even really describe. It has brought more experienced racers to joy and to tears than any other place that I know.
You talk about how much this race means to people. When I think about it, I think about the fact that that guy right there who's won 3 poles and 4 races, when he talks about coming to this place, the guy has been the best of anybody here. He uses one word: intimidating. When Jeff Gordon is intimidated by a racetrack, you know that it is very, very special.
And I'll tell you, Doc, when we won that first race, he took an extra victory lap, and you know why? Because he was crying in the car, and don't ever let him tell you any different. I mean, he needed a moment to himself to realize what he had accomplished.
So much emotion. Let's go down to the garage area in Vince Welch.
Standing by with Martin Truex Jr. Had a nice pickup from yesterday's practice and qualified 13th earlier this afternoon. Now comes the final practice, happy hour, the last chance to get race ready. What do you need to have this car do for you in this final 90-minute practice?
Well, we're going to work on it. You know, yesterday we kind of struggled, and the 42 guys helped us a lot with our setup, and you know, like I said, we picked up a lot for qualifying, so I was happy about that. Just need to work on to get it driving good. You know, it's going to be hot and slick tomorrow, and you know, these tires seem like they're really good, so they should hold up for the long runs. So we'll work on long runs, try to keep the car balanced, and you know, and hopefully it'll have some speed in it too.
How has the relationship been with Juan in regards to sharing the information? You mentioned his testing here. Obviously, it's been a benefit for your team as well.
It really has. I've really enjoyed working with Juan. He's been a great teammate for me. He's a lot of fun to be around, and he can drive a car fast too. So they've helped us here a lot this weekend so far, and I feel like they were probably the best car yesterday. So we'll kind of took what they had, and we'll start with that today and work around it and see what happens.
A lot of kids like playing Guitar Hero. They'll be rooting for Martin Truex Jr. tomorrow on the Guitar Hero Chevrolet, Dave.
Vince, Jamie McMurray starts on the outside of row 12 tomorrow. You and your Roush teammates have pushed these race cars this weekend, and they haven't really responded yet. What will the final 90 minutes be like, Jamie?
Well, we just have a lot of work still left to do. We unloaded kind of all really close together, and the setup that we started with was a fair amount off. Everybody was just really, really loose. So we worked on yesterday for the 1 hour to try to get the cars better in race trim, and felt like they made some progress there. And then qualifying, I mean, everyone that I listened to in qualifying seemed to be really disappointed. And as a group, Greg did well, but the rest of us didn't qualify very well. So we've got to get our cars just a little bit better here today.
And it is intense here, is it not? Unlike any other track?
Well, there's just so much effort put into this race. Certainly Daytona, there's a lot of buildup, and we're there for like 10 days or 11 days. But all of the teams and drivers, everybody wants to win here. And a lot of effort is put into this, and it's a fairly stressful environment, yes.
You can tell by the smile, Jamie would like to win as well. Let's go to Jamie Little.
I know everybody's under a little stress right now, actually. Shane Wilson, your crew chief, for Clint Boyer, of course. You guys sitting here talking, and his notepad was about this big. Does that mean you guys are pretty good?
Well, Benzie didn't stay over here for this interview. I'm going to give him a little bit of trouble. Yeah, all the rest of the crew chiefs got these big, notebooks and everything. His is a little notepad about this big, but it's a pretty good notepad. It seems to be this weekend. He's done a really good job building this race car. This was a car that we brought here to the test and actually crashed, cut the right front tire down and got in the fence. The guys went back and fixed this car, worked their butts off, and really proud of everybody on the Cheerios Hamburger Helper Chevrolet. Brought a good car. Qualified decent. We can see the front from there, and this is important practice for us. Everybody's going to be out there running hard, getting some laps under their belts, and it's going to be interesting to see how the fall-offs are. Everybody seems like they got speed. It's really close up there to the front. We'll see who this one separates the men from the boys here.
Now, you said your car's pretty good. Right now, you guys are practicing. It's going to be about 5:30 to 7, but tomorrow race is going to be a little earlier. So how much do you adjust, and where's that line?
Yeah, that's going to be the hardest thing for me right now. I was already telling him, I'm going to want to turn better. That seems to be always the tendency here. Free me up, I'm going to go faster. Keep freeing me up, and then it hits that point, and you're way too loose. And it's just going to be a hard thing to. Everybody's going to have to look at the notes. We're going to have to talk after this practice and have a good, a starting point. And if we do that, we'll be just fine. Had a lot to use from Chicago. We ran well there, got some momentum, some confidence back in his team. That's crucial. Going into these next 7 races, it's going to be important to everybody have a pep in their step and work hard and get the most out of this effort, because I really feel like we can still race our way back in.
All right, Clint Boyer qualified 10th, the best RCR car. Doc?
Jamie, let's take a look at a starting grid after qualifying and show you how they will line up here on Sunday. How about these first couple of rows? 50-year-old Mark Martin on the pole, Juan Pablo Montoya, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and 53-year-old Bill Elliott outside of row 2.
Yeah, and back there in row 4, a great battle in 2005 between those two guys. We might see it again this year, Tony Stewart and Casey Kane.
Marcus Ambrose, impressive qualifying effort by the young man from Tasmania, starting inside of row 6. You see the Rocket Man Ryan Newman there inside of 9, and Joey Logano, he could make some noise. That 20 car's been awfully good here over the years.
Yeah, he is, and Zippy, who his crew chief, has won this race twice. Jimmy Johnson, just up in front of him, has been a favorite to win this race.
You see Matt Kenseth there, one of the drivers doing double duty at ORP and here over the weekend. Paul Menard there, remember his father, this place so important. And toward the back of the pack, some good cars. Bobby Labonte, a former winner here.
Yeah, Jeff Burton had a little trouble qualifying. And Kurt Busch, we saw with that possible mechanical problem that we don't know was yet, but there are some good cars in the rear of the field.
It is hard to believe that Kurt Busch and Carl Edwards are starting at the back of the pack. But you know what, folks? In the 2009 season, 4 times races have been won by drivers starting all the way at the back of the field. Now, we are getting set for NASCAR Sprint Cup Series Happy Hour here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And about 6 miles away over to Raleigh Raceway Park, they are getting set for the NASCAR Nationwide Series race tonight. So let's check in over there now with Marty Reed and the gang. Marty?
All right, thanks, Doc, and congratulations from all of us to Mark Martin on his pole for tomorrow's running of the Brickyard 400. Yeah, it was a very interesting day, as we all know, with the rain and finally getting some dry weather. We got some practice in. We're getting ready for qualifying. And take a look at the top 10 speeds from our practice. Jason Leffler, on his 3rd of 43 laps, turned that 110.5-mile-an-hour run. And the rookie, Trevor Bayne, 18 years old, number 2, with Mike Bliss, who finished 3rd here last year. Last night's truck winner, Ron Hornaday, 4th. And guess who's going to go out first in qualifying? The 38 of Jason Leffler, and that's where we find Shannon Spake.
That's right, Marty. We don't have to wait very long to find out just how fast Jason Leffler will be in qualifying today. But on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your confidence level going into today that you can catch the pole?
Well, I can guarantee I'll be on the pole, at least for maybe 20 seconds. We're going out first, so Great Clips Camry's really good. I don't know if we'll be on the pole. The going out first here is not a really good draw, but if we can get in the top 5 or even the top 8 or so, we'll be in good shape for the race. The car's really good, but in reality, I'm confident going to any race any weekend now. Cars have been running really good. Guys are doing a great job, and I think we can win anywhere. Just everything has to go our way.
Right now, it sounds like the 4 double-duty drivers are not going to be able to make it here for qualifying, which means they will start in the back of the field. For a full-time nationwide drivers looking to get a win here, is that a benefit for you guys? And how quickly do you think you can look to maybe put those guys a lap down at a short track like this?
It's going to be hard to put Kyle Busch and Carl Edwards a lap down, and those guys run so strong. So, I mean, it doesn't affect us. We run our own race. We do our own deal, and we try hard to keep up with those guys, and we've been doing a really good job lately as a team, running with a lot of them and beating a lot of them. But, you know, I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, but I don't think those guys are pretty quick learners, so I think they'll be all right.
Well, Jason Leffler is a great learner here at ORP. He has 7 total wins, one of them in the Nationwide Series, which was back in 2007.
All right, thanks, Shannon. And let's bring in Rusty Wallace, Randy LaJoie, 2-time winner here for Randy. And I'm going to put you both on the spot. Who gets pole?
I tell you, I'm looking at Trevor Bayne right now. The kid looks really good. He's real confident. And watching this car on the racetrack, it was the best looking car as far as the body attitude down I've seen out there. The car looked real good.
You can't take Ron Hornaday out of this. You talk about experience. He won last night. He's still all jacked up. And Kevin Harvick has worked really well with his nationwide team getting it up to speed.
All right, let's talk about the 4 double-duty drivers. And they are not going to make qualifying because happy hour is getting ready to start over at Indianapolis Motor Speedway because of the rain and the change in schedule. But take a look at this. Here is Kyle Busch, Matt Kenseth, Carl Edwards. They all practiced over here, guys. They are in the back to the middle of the field. David Rudiman, the only guy who did not come over to practice, he's 5th. Should we draw any conclusions?
Marty, I didn't like what happened with Kyle Busch, Matt Kenseth, and Carl Edwards. It takes such extreme focus at the big track over at Indianapolis to get qualified. It's a very, very tough place to get qualified. They came over here and practiced at the smaller track, O'Reilly Raceway Park, and man, you bomb them into corners right here. You're real aggressive, and over there, you got to be smooth. It's a totally different deal, and I really think it affected them. You talk about Kenseth, Edwards, and Busch. I think it hurt them coming over here to O'Reilly Raceway Park and testing. I think it was a bad thing. Rudiman did not come. You look where he ended up 5th. So there's something to be said about this.
You agree?
Well, absolutely. Indy is such a technical racetrack. You come over here, this is, you know, your arms are flailing, you're driving very aggressively. At the big track, you have to finesse that racetrack to go fast.
All right, let's remind you about what's going to be coming up on ESPN, 7:30 Eastern tonight. We'll have the 20th round of the NASCAR Nationwide Series. We'll start it off with countdown. And there's been 4 different winners in the last 4 O'Reilly Park Nationwide Series races. As we're going to send it back over to Jerry Punch as they're getting ready for happy hour. We'll do updates from here when it warrants.
Thank you, Marty. We will be updating what's happening over there. And here is Kyle Busch. You're talking about the guys that go over and jump in the car on the short track and then have to come back here and qualify. Now, we are going to have happy hour coverage live from Indianapolis Motor Speedway at the same time that they are going to have qualifying going on at ORP. But we're going to be updating on what's happening in qualifying at ORP in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Folks, you're going to get double coverage, 2 racetracks, 1 city, 2 series, and some of the all-time great drivers over the next hour and a half here and with our coverage of happy hour and what's happening as well over in the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Mark Martin talking to Juan Pablo Montoya. What are they talking about? I got to wonder. That lap 1, turn 1, who's going to be the first car to go in there? And what about Jimmy Johnson? Could he become the first driver to win this race in back-to-back seasons? No one has ever done it. Chad Canals talking to his driver as they are getting set to buckle in and go out. Dale Earnhardt Jr. battling a stomach virus the last 48 hours. Said he's starting to feel a little bit better. And, of course, trying to get some fluid in him. And his car very quick in qualifying. And he is 3rd overall. And of course, there is Carl Edwards at the very back of the pack. Got to wonder what he's thinking about. He starts 41st on Sunday. Back in a moment. Moments away from cars rolling here for happy hour. Final practice session at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway prior to the Brickyard 400 on Sunday. Now, earlier in the week, we set our champions down and asked them to sort of predict what they think they're going to have we're going to see here on Sunday afternoon. And here is that conversation.
Okay, guys, we're getting ready to go to the Brickyard for this.
Whoa, 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 whoa. You guys need someone in here for a little arbitration. I don't think you boys can handle it. You need somebody that knows what they're talking about. You need somebody to run this show, and I'm here to do it.
All right, then. Get on, man. Bring it on. Throw it down.
As you look at this race coming up, who's the guy to beat? Who's the team to beat, do you think? I mean, as I look back through the record book just glares a name Jeff Gordon to me.
If he does, he's going to pass his teammate, Jimmy Johnson.
That's where I'm going with that. Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus.
His other teammate, Tony Stewart.
That's what I was going to say about Tony Stewart.
This race is going to come down not just to two giant, great, talented drivers. Tony Stewart, that grassroots racer, to Jimmy Johnson, that now he's the California Flash kid, whatever you want to call it. But it's going to come down to Darian Grubb and Chad Knaus and that team, that detail. This is going to be an engineer's race.
You don't think Gordon will figure into that?
You know, I love Jeff Gordon like a brother. But right now, I think that those two guys are going to be the guys to beat. Now, I know he can figure into it, but if you say to me right now, I got to pick one or two guys, I just believe that both those teams right now are so into getting those cars. They know what their drivers need. Both drivers want it really bad. And you've got to remember, Darian worked for Chad, okay? So there's a little bit of rivalry there. You know, the 14's got Hendrick cars and Hendrick motors. Now they're the Star Hendrick team. I mean, there's a rivalry there, and I'll guarantee you that each of those teams know that the other one's the one that they got to beat, and you're going to see maximum performance out of both those cars.
Both those guys are really good. But the guy that makes the mistake, it's going to cost him the race. Because when you get yourself out of that groove, you talk about missing the groove 3 inches or a foot and it being on the driver's responsibility. When that guy misses that air pressure or doesn't read that racetrack, but that's where Chad is so great with Jimmy.
The one thing that Chad does well is he makes sure that he doesn't take Jimmy out of a chance to win the thing. He keeps him, at least to let him do what he does well, and that's to drive the wheels off that thing in the closing laps of the race. And he makes sure that he has Jimmy in a position to be able to do that.
Jimmy Johnson's my pick, and Tony Stewart's a great choice too. If there's anybody I think that's going to challenge those guys, Carl Edwards. He does a good job of sliding his car around. They generally don't mess up as far as tearing up tires or abusing the tires. I think he would be a guy that would certainly have a good chance at beating them. But I think you're going to have to beat Jimmy Johnson if you're going to try to win.
Rob Osborne. Osborne, good strategist, you know, again, good technical guy, good engineer. I mean, if it's going to come down to fuel mileage and strategy and things like that, you're right. He may be the guy to beat, but again, you know, you throw those guys in the mix, you know, it's going to take a good, strong team, and not just a great driver.
A great sentimental favorite, so to speak, Mark Martin. You know, you'd love to see Mark get one of those Brickyard victories. I have to go to somebody that I think is a good flat track racer and has a crew chief that knows how to get it done at the Brickyard, and that's Denny Hamlin and Mike Ford. I think they've got a really good.
I agree with you, and I base what you just said off of how good he runs at Pocono, Pennsylvania. Because Pocono is so close in setup to Indianapolis. It's not the same, that's for sure, but it's one of the closest tracks you can get, and Denny flat flies around Pocono.
And Mike Ford is a journeyman, and Mike Ford was on the box the day that Bill Elliott won the Brickyard in 2002 for me.
Okay, how can we say all this and have not yet mentioned Kyle Busch's name?
Well, that's what I'm.
How do we say Kyle Busch is not going to be one of these guys?
Flat tracks aren't their forte. That hasn't been exactly what they've, you know, even though I think this year they've been a little bit better on them, and it's nothing against any of them. It's just an area that race team in particular there, they haven't seemed to hit on what it takes.
Well, what is it? What does it take? You've won twice. I mean, what is the difference in running a flat racetrack versus a banked racetrack where he is good?
That's a good question, because you talk about momentum. He's the best at momentum at all these other racetracks, but it's just something that they're missing in getting that car balanced to be able to drive through the center and off the corner, and I think that's where they get beat.
You think it's in the car?
I think it's in the car, yeah.
I think Kyle Busch always leaning on that thing. He's talking about aero, leaning on the aero all the time, Andy. You know, that banking really helps hold that car. And you put him on a flat racetrack, it doesn't seem like he gets it done there. Look what happened to Pocono off of turn 4. Spun out, knocked a wall down. Stuff
I
like
think that Kyle and Steve Addington just have to mature a little bit more, because Indy is not the kind of place you can win with pure driver talent or horsepower.
That's right.
You've got to have the whole package.
And
again, it goes back to the guys that work through that whole package. And they need to be just a little bit more mature as a team.
I tell you, this has been great, guys. It's been an honor and a privilege to sit here with 5 champions of this sport and to spend time just chewing the fat. I hope we can do it again sometime soon.
Those champions in a boxing ring talking about what's going to happen here in a bigger ring, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on Sunday. And it's amazing how many of the discussions, how much of the discussion, this took place early in the week, and all the stories you guys were talking about have come to fruition now. Mark Martin on the pole.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the scariest thing about that was we were all so afraid Brad was going to hit us if we didn't do exactly what he said. But, you know, what an honor that was for me just to be part of it with those guys, you know, sitting around listening to different points of views. And you look at the wins and championships around that table, and, well, we're going to find out just how good some of these guys are and what adjustments they're going to make as we're watching them pull out onto the Speedway right now, Doc.
Time and again, I've heard crew chiefs say and drivers say the Brickyard 400 wasn't won on Sunday. The race was actually won late Saturday afternoon in this practice session, which we call happy hour.
Yeah, normally not this late Saturday afternoon, so guys are going to have to adjust for the weather. We're starting a lot earlier tomorrow. Indianapolis, 5:30, 6 o'clock at night changes it. It gets a lot faster. There's a lot more grip, so the guys are really going to have to take that into consideration for whatever they're trying to do.
So how much would you be willing to change your race car based on what you find out here, knowing the race is going to be just after lunchtime?
Well, Doc, I would go into it guessing on my shock package, my tire temperatures, things like that the track is going to be a little bit greasier just after lunchtime. Today, you could certainly rely on tire wear and fuel mileage and things like that, but I just think the cars are going to be a little bit more comfortable right now than they're going to be at 12:30 tomorrow.
Let's hear from Dave Burns.
You guys are all over it. Chad Knaus, crew chief for this car right here. Jimmy Johnson reminded his driver as he left the garage area, hey, at this point tomorrow, we're about 3 hours into it. So just keep that in mind as we adjust on that. What they learn right now, Ray, this could get them the winning race, or the winning setup at the very end of this race.
That's right, Dave. You know, what they're going to be looking for now is how good that thing is at the end. And I think they know that they've got a package that's 75% of the way there. So Chad is going to be one of the people that's going to be just looking at his minute front-end changes, tire wear. You might even see him be a guy that puts 2 tires on at one point in this race just to see. There he is making notes. So important to keep those notes tonight. When everybody else is asleep, Chad's probably going to have that stuff spread all over, looking at all that information.
And if you're wondering, why would Chad be so concerned? Because his driver has won this race twice in the last 3 years, 06 and 08. But what Chad remembers is the other 3 years, 3 of the last 5 years, Jimmy Johnson has had DNFs.
Oh, sorry, Doc, but he may be a little bit worried because of that guy right there. That's the guy that I said it's going to come down to a battle of Chad Knaus, who we just saw, and Darian Grubb. As I said in that little piece, I believe that those guys are both prepared. They understand how to win it. Darian was part of that winning 48 team when they won here, and Darian is the crew chief on that car right now.
Tony Stewart out for the happy hour. And here's the guy who is trying to make history at Indianapolis to become the first driver to win 5 times on this historic oval.
Incredible numbers. You know, when you look at the numbers that Jeff has put up, the most poles, most wins, most top 5, most lap led, you know, he could actually be the guy. I think he is the guy who has won this race from the furthest back, maybe 27th starting position.
Jeff won it back in 27th starting spot. And you know, the other 4-time winners, by the way, are all open wheel guys: A.J. Foyt, Al Unser Sr., and Rick Mears. Now, here's the 2 car that we talked about was just bouncing up and down during qualifying, and just a great job by Kurt Busch to hang on. We saw a little smoke out of the back of this car.
Yeah, Doc, that might have been a little bit splitter. You know, the splitter's made out of a material that puts off a little black smoke when it drags, but there was obviously something wrong with that car in qualifying, and it's a shame because, you know, Roger Penske is one of the guys I'd love to see win this race. I mean, he's done just about everything else in motorsports, won here a bunch of times with the Indy cars, but it looks like Pat Tryson's got that thing settled down now, but they've got a long way to go through the field.
Yeah, I talked to Kurt Busch at a charity function the other night here in Indianapolis, and that's all he could talk about is how much he would like to be the one to give Roger Penske his very first win in a stock car here at Indianapolis. Now behind him, another driver who really struggled in qualifying, Carl Edwards, who will start 41st tomorrow.
Yeah, a long way to go there too. Very surprised. Carl's a good, strong qualifier. The Roush cars just seemed a little bit off, but maybe they need to go see Bill Elliott, because that's a Roush Yates engine, and maybe they need a little information sharing.
Let's watch this telemetry here, Ray, and see what that can show us about what's going on with Carl's car. See, we're over 203, 204 miles an hour at the end of the straightaway.
Well, and Doc, you see how dark those shadows were getting down to that corner. I think he's entering that corner at well over 200 miles an hour, and very hard to see the marks when it goes from bright light to shadow like that.
You saw how he just touched the brake a little bit going in turn 2, but I guess if they come down this back straightaway, we'll watch and see how he will jam that brake on to get woed down as he enters turn 3. Yeah. Big time brake pressure there just to get the car slowed momentarily, but only down to 7,000 RPMs.
Yeah, when they're turning just a little over 9,000 and dropping about 1,800 RPM. Boy, that's that's got to be unnerving. You're looking for that rubber. You want to run those right side tires in that black because it gives you a little bit of grip. Now, look at how black it's gone there. You can't really see the rubber. He's got bright light on the inside of him. Now it's black. He's got to turn that thing.
How's she feel, bud?
Well, obviously, he didn't hear him, or he might have been a little bit busy to answer him right there.
Behind the 99 car of Carl Edwards is the 39 car of Ryan Newman. The teammate of Tony Stewart, Ryan Newman, still trying to go to victory lane for the first time in Indianapolis. Grew up in South Bend, Indiana. Talks about how much it would mean to him to get a win here in the Hoosier State.
Yeah, a guy that knows how to get around here. We saw he had the best average qualifying start in all of his times here. And I think being teammates with Tony Stewart is actually helping Ryan a little bit. Ryan's been known as kind of a hard driver, a guy to get all the speed out of the car. I think Tony's teaching him to be a little bit of finesse and maybe help Ryan towards the end of a race.
Some of these cars still searching for some speed and comfort on the racetrack. Others have already gone back to the garage area. We're going to go back down there and check in with Vince Welch.
Well, Doc, the 21 car, Bill Elliott, of course, had that outstanding qualifying run, qualified 4th fastest, so he'll start in row 2. But because of the fact that he had to qualify near the end of the qualifying order, and then the car is held for a while after qualifying, it's put the team behind in trying to get it switched over to race trim and then get that car ready to get out for this final happy hour qualifying. So the 21 team kind of thrashing here, trying to get the car ready to go so Bill Elliott can get out and get some practice laps in race trim. Dave Burns?
Vince, as you know, these racers start the practice session with a plan in mind, and for Tony Stewart it was to go out and run 10 laps with the setup they had on it. But after 2 laps up to speed on the raceway, he radioed into Darian Grubb and said, "It's tight already. Do you want me to make all 10 or come on in?" He said, "Bring it on in. It is tight in the center of the corner." They've made some changes to the left front suspension on that car, and now they'll see if they've got that worked out for Tony Stewart. Jamie?
Well, Dave, there's a common theme. Tight, tight, tight. Kyle Busch, the 18, in the garage now. He went out, he did 1 lap. He said, "I am so tight. When I go down to the bottom of the racetrack, I have no front end." So they are in the garage making some adjustments. You see there, they changed the tires. He's going to pull out. And guys, they're planning on running all 90 minutes of this practice session.
Ray Evernham talking about tight race cars, middle of the corner. The car will not turn, and that's going to be awfully tough here if you got to get that solved early.
Yeah, Doc, but going back to qualifying, when it was in the sun, we saw a lot of loose race cars. Biggest difference, they've got that tape off the nose. They don't have as much aerodynamic front downforce, and now there's some grip back in the track. There's getting more and more rubber down, and the cars are getting harder and harder to turn. They're going to have to be freeing those cars up, but not make them too free to run in the afternoon tomorrow.
Not wasting any time. Tony Stewart coming back in and having Darian Grubb work on the race car. Now, why are they so concerned about the middle of the corner in between?
Because you've got to carry that speed across the middle of the corner to get back to the throttle early. And we've seen here with the long straightaways, you want to be back in that fuel, back in that gas earlier. The guy that can go across the middle of the corner the fastest is the guy that's going to get down that straightaway the fastest.
Watch Tony at the end of the straightaway. NASCAR waving the red flag because we are being told there's debris on the racetrack. So they want to get these guys in. They want to take a chance on someone cutting a tire or damaging a race car here, so they'll check the racetrack and then continue with the NASCAR Sprint Cup Happy Hour. Right now it is Jimmy Johnson, the fastest car in Happy Hour, and Carl Edwards is second quickest. So whatever they had going wrong in qualifying, they've obviously helped it a bunch here in this final practice.
Yeah, no big surprises in that top 10. When you look down there, you see Johnson, Edwards, Newman, Kane, Stewart, Gordon, Biffle, Martin, and Vickers right there. Brian's had some good runs here. So again, you look at the guys who are good here. They've got 75% of their package done, and right now they're working on that last 25% that can win them that race tomorrow.
Reed Sorensen, the former pole sitter, had a good qualifying run here. He will start 9th tomorrow, driving for the King Richard Petty. Cars are on pit road, getting those Goodyear tires checked. And while the caution is out here for racetrack check for debris, and we'll take a break and go over to O'Reilly Raceway Park to check in with Nationwide Series qualifying.
All right, thanks, Doc. And we have had 4 cars that have taken time so far. The 4th one out there right now as Jason Leffler was first out, ran 22.62 seconds. Then Stephen Light went a little quicker at 22.60. And Eric Darnell right now is on pole at 22.45. And that is Mr. McDowell as Michael runs a 23.102. That puts him in the 4th position.
Tell you what we saw so far is this racetrack speeding up a little bit. It got real slick in the afternoon. A lot of the drivers were complaining about that. And this morning, when we had a lot of rain here at ORP, the drivers went out and really laid down some fast laps. But right now, it's starting to come back a little bit. But Randy, still not as fast as it was this morning.
Now, what happens, these guys, they do a lot of chassis work to these cars, Rusty. They drop the track bar, they put wedge in their car. You know, they abuse the tires for 2 laps, which definitely helps them.
Out on the track right now, you're looking live at Kenny Wallace. His 437 starts, second all-time only to Jason Keller, who's also in the field this weekend.
I'll tell you, he loves this racetrack. He's driving that U.S. Border Patrol car, and Kenny's been looking forward to getting over here for a long time. I really consider him a short track ace. He was actually 12th quick in practice today. The car looked really good. And right now, you can see he's fallen off a little bit off that turn, off of turn 4. Right now, he's on a second lap, and it looks like it's just a bit slower at the moment.
He's raced here 11 times. He was on the pole back in 2001. His best finish was 2002 when he came home in 5th. And you can see that the tracker is heading in the wrong direction. And he comes across the line. It is good enough to slot him into the 4th position. 22.757, his best time. And Eric Darnell is our current pole sitter, and he's with Shannon Spade.
Well, another impressive run by Eric Darnell so far. He did sit on the pole in Milwaukee. Do you think this one will stick?
I don't know. There were some guys that were pretty quick in practice. I feel like our discount tire Ford Fusion was good in practice. Didn't really know what we'd have for a qualifying run. I mean, I think the time of day, the heat out here, I think that's a pretty good lap. I don't know if it's going to hold up, though. I feel like I maybe left a little bit out on the table. Car was just a little bit looser than I thought it was going to be, but all in all, still a good run. I got to thank Discount Tire for letting me have this race this weekend. I only had 15 up to this point. We needed 16 to run for Rookie of the Year, and they were gracious enough to allow me to run this race, and that's going to let us run for the best Rookie of the Year deal, and hopefully we'll have a good run for it tonight.
All right, well, good luck to you. Marty?
And as you finish up, we're looking at Jason Keller, who tonight will make his 16th start here at O'Reilly Raceway Park, and that'll make him number 1 on the all-time starter lists among all drivers. Tommy Houston had 15 along with Jason.
Yeah, you heard Eric say, I left a little bit out there. And that little bit might mean the difference of starting on the pole and not starting on the pole.
Renee, taking a look at Jason Keller. He's getting into turn 3 right now. In practice, he just hated his car. He came in and made some major changes on the car. All the springs and shocks were flying on it. He was 21st in practice. He's got a lot better lap right now.
Well, our pole sitter back in 1999 and a 2-time winner here, Jason Keller, slots in at the number 4 spot right now at 22.64 seconds. And Eric Darnell stays on point. Now, we talked about Trevor Bayne a few moments ago as the 18-year-old rookie. It will be next up, and there he is. And you think he's got a good shot at pole?
I really do. He was second fastest in practice, and I look at the cars, the way they look in the racetrack, and to me, guys, this car looked the best out of all the cars we looked at on the racetrack. And Trevor got out of the car with a lot of confidence, really pumped up. He thinks he can grab the pole.
You know, this is something that Jerry Baxter's been with Michael for 10 years. Michael's had a nationwide push operation for 15 years. So this is probably the longest staying nationwide Busch team. And that just goes to show. Look at it, like I said, Rusty. The attitude is very good. He's above the green line. He's gassing it up.
His best start was the second back at Nashville in June, and right now he's on point. 22.45 seconds. That's 3 100ths better than Eric Darnell in the upper right of your screen. It could be a little bit of irony. His owner, Michael Waltrip, scored his first Nationwide Series pole right here back in 1989 and went on to win. And look at this, he's even quicker than the last lap as he comes across the stripe. Trevor Bayne, 22.296. So far, Rusty, you're looking pretty doggone good.
I tell you, that was a real fast lap for Bayne, a 22.29. Marty, quick lap.
All right, well, we'll come back here for other updates as warranted. Right now, we're going to send it back over to Indianapolis Motor Speedway and Dr. Jerry Punch. Doc?
Thank you very much, Marty. How about that? Possibly an 18-year-old on the pole across town at O'Reilly Raceway Park. We got a 50-year-old on the pole here, Mark Martin, for Sunday. Here's Tony Stewart on the racetrack and continuing to turn laps and dialing this car in.
Yeah, Doc, you know, you heard Tony ask Darian if he wanted to bring it in and work on it. They made an adjustment. He's out there making a long run now. And what they're going to try and do, you see guys making a long run, and they're going to compare how far their car drops off over the course of a run to other guys. That's how you know how good you are. You really don't want to know how fast your car is or 1 or 2 laps. You want to look at your 9, 10, 11, or even 12, 15 lap range and say, okay, I was a 53 flat and they were a 53.10 to judge how good you are.
There is Darian Grubb on the right side of your screen. And Ray, in the testing here, a lot of these drivers, there were 30 cars that came, different drivers that came here to test. They said after 20 laps, the tires dropped off about a second. And if you know that's going to happen, how does that help you in terms of race strategy?
Well, in race strategy, you want to try and make your car lose less time than everybody else. But it's going to tell you, I think that's why I believe it's going to make it a better race, because tires are going to make a difference. You're going to see a guy coming to pit road for tires rather than just staying out or taking fuel only.
Here's the 9 car of Casey Kane. Let's see what Casey is doing right now. He's 5th overall on the speed charts.
And if you look at Casey's laps, Casey right now is on his 8th lap. His times are really respectable. He and Kenny have got a good combination. They've been together for a long time. They're communicating perfectly. They've been building some new cars that are a little lighter weight, a little lower center of gravity. They run that R6 P8 engine, and they have really been happy with their new cars and communication. He's been on quite a roll the last 7 or 8 races.
Yeah, so much momentum for Casey Kane. He won it in Infineon. He finished 10th at Loudon, 15th at Daytona, and 3rd the last time out at Chicagoland. So momentum really helping this team.
Oh yeah, and he loves this place. He runs good here. Almost won the race in 2005, lost it to Tony, but this is one of the places. You know, Casey lived in Indianapolis for a while, was an open wheel racer, did a lot of racing over at ORP, so I know he's excited every time he comes here.
He'll be making his 200th career start here tomorrow, and it happens, as you said, at one of the biggest tracks in his mind, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Here is Ryan Newman, and you know, I love when you go talk to Ryan, you understand how important this place is and how important racing is. You know, we were talking to him earlier and talking about how when he was born, his dad Greg Newman in 1977 stood up in the delivery room and said, you know, my son Ryan is going to be a race car driver. He pronounced it in the delivery room. And, of course, Ryan has followed suit on his dad's prediction.
Yeah, and he's a pretty darn good race car driver. But, again, another Indiana guy went Purdue here. And, you know, if you look at his 10-lap times, he's dropped off a little bit. They're probably not really happy with that, going to make some more adjustments. He looked actually a little bit free, so probably he and Tony will be comparing notes.
The 5 car of Mark Martin has now come back onto the racetrack. Jamie.
Well, Doc, right before he came into the garage moments ago, he came on the radio and explained to Alan Gustafson, his crew chief, what he was feeling.
I was pretty good there at the end. It just was too loose. The left rear's not quite in the track hard enough, you know, but the track track may tighten up some, but we could try left rear end of the track just a tick more.
So he came into the garage. He said the balance is about right, and it would be really easy to make this car too tight. So they made a left rear track bar adjustment and sent him back out on his way.
Ray, you got to love hearing that kind of input and feedback from a veteran driver if you're a crew chief.
Doc, that's incredible. That kind of feedback, that kind of driver makes great crew chiefs. When a guy's telling you what tire to go to work on, you know, when Mark's got so much experience and he can tell you the left rear tire is really not into the racetrack, you know, that tells his crew where he's got to go. And there's not too many guys that can do that. That's why I always enjoyed working with Jeff Gordon talk like that, Bill Elliott, Rusty Wallace, our partner in crime here at ESPN, was always good at telling you which wheel to go to work on.
Well, to show you exactly what Mark was talking about with his crew chief, let's go down to our Craftsman Tech Garage and Tim Brewer.
Thanks, Doc. When they're talking about making a track bar adjustment, it's a refined perspective, because see this slot right here? This is the trailing arm that sits right inside the left rear wheel. We basically run a 5/8 bolt through here, and what we do, we actually adjust it, and we can adjust it 1/4 of an inch at a time. And every time you move the track bar down, you're basically changing the roll center just a little bit, but anytime you run it down, you're tightening the car up, and when you raise it up, you're going to free the car up from the center of the corner off.
Thank you, Tim. And it's amazing, Ray, that at 200 miles an hour at the end of a straightaway, a 1/4 of an inch adjustment on that track bar can make that big a difference.
Well, that was a conversation that I had with Chad Knaus this morning when I asked him, Chad, can you still do the same things to these cars that we used to do to the old cars? And he said, Ray, you can, but the adjustments are much more refined. When we used to go a couple of turns, it's a 1/2 turn, it's a 1/16 of an inch, it's a little bit of this, it's a little bit of that. So these cars react to much smaller changes than the old cars.
We talked about the challenges they're having with the 2-car here. Kurt Busch trying to get it dialed in after what was a disaster in qualifying. And he's had some frightening moments here in happy hour as well. Here's what happened just a moment ago.
Really sideways there, using up a lot of racetrack. I guess he's not having any trouble turning. He's a little bit too free there, Doc, wouldn't you think?
Dave?
Well, and Ray, let me ask you this. They just changed something on that car per Kurt's request, which was to soften up the right front a little bit and to stiffen up the left front a little bit, that being springs. So would that cause the car to loosen up?
It would absolutely cause the car to loosen up. And you know, one of the things that's critical with this COT is the fact that they do use the bump stops. And I know we talk about those a lot, and everybody's getting tired of hearing about it, but it really limits the amount of travel in the front of the car. So how you change the rate of that bump stop can change that car completely, and they probably made just a small change there that made that car just a little bit too free.
Now, those are the words of 3-time Brickyard 400 winner Ray Evernham. If you're wondering why you're not hearing from Dale Jarrett and Andy Petrie, those guys have moved down to prepare for a live Sports Center special that you'll be able to see on ESPN tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So Dale Jarrett and Andy Petrie and Alan Bestwick and all the guys will be down there bringing you updates on what they think may happen here tomorrow. Meanwhile, it's Ray Evernham and myself. I'm Jerry Punch as we bring you live coverage of Happy Hour from Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and we intermittently going back over to ORP as well to update what's happening in the Nationwide Series qualifying. We were speculating that there was something going on with the 19 car of Elliott Sadler during qualifying. It said the car looked unusual on the racetrack and smelled funny when it came down pit road. Vince, what was it?
Well, I don't think the smell was anything other than Elliott thinking that the car stunk. But talking with the crew chief Kevin Buskirk earlier today, he said they just weren't happy with their qualifying setup. They went to some teammates' data, and it did not work for them in qualifying, and they really struggled. 42nd starting position for tomorrow's race. So for this practice, they went back to their race trim setup from yesterday, and you know, frankly, they were just mediocre yesterday, but it's been the starting point from which they hope to improve on today. Early indications from Elliott Sadler, too tight, very tight, in fact, rolling center. Doc.
Happy Hour continuing here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Let's check in over at O'Reilly Raceway Park where Nationwide Series qualifying is ongoing. When we left him a little bit ago, it was an 18-year-old on the pole.
All right, thanks, Doc. Over here at O'Reilly Raceway Park, some of the fans are already getting here early. They want to see qualifying. Take a look at the top 10 so far. Trevor Bayne, that you saw just a few moments ago, has held up by a margin over Eric Darnell through Mike Bliss, and then all the way down to Kevin Conway at 22.9. Let's take you back to last night, because next out on the track is going to be the driver of that 33 VFW Chevrolet. That is Ron Hornaday, making history. The first man ever in the Camping World Truck Series to win 4 consecutive races. And right now he is on the track taking the green flag to see what he can do with Kevin Harvick's number 33 Chevy.
Guys, I've talked to Kevin Harvick, and Kevin thinks he's really got their act together with these cars right now. He told me, I really feel like I can compete with the Toyotas. I feel like we're as good as the Gibbs guys right now, and everybody knows they are the target. And today, Ron was 4th fastest in practice and really happy with his car.
Well, you know, he figures a 50-year-old can do it at the big track. A 51-year-old can try it here.
22.6 is not going to get it done. Trevor Bayne in the upper right-hand portion of your screen. And now take a look. Oops, starting to slide south. I thought for a while he was going to stay in the green, but it looks like Trevor may escape here as Hornaday comes through turn number 4, slides it close to the wall. It comes across the stripe in the second lap, 22.5. That puts him 3rd.
3rd quick. That's a good lap for Hornaday. It's probably what he expected. He was 4th quick in practice. This car's looking fantastic, guys.
All right, so that gets you caught up over here at ORP. We'll send it back over to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We'll come back when we need it again, Doc.
Thank you, guys. 18-year-old Trevor Bayne on the pole right now over there in NASCAR Nationwide Series qualifying. You know what? They're already calling Trevor Bayne the next Joey Logano. Logano, at 19 years of age, has already won in a NASCAR Sprint Cup car at New Hampshire. So much talent at a young age, and Trevor Bayne following in his footsteps.
These guys are getting younger and younger, Doc. I've got shoes older than some of them, but, you know, Logano's actually pretty good. You know, some of his high laps right now, he's settled in a little bit, but not a great speed on that last lap, but 14 laps on his tires, and I think Greg Zipadelli's got him working on rhythm and getting him to understand that a fuel run's going to be about twice this long. One of the other things that you might be able to do with a guy like this is have him practice getting to pit road. This is a new track for him. He's at a high speed. He doesn't know pit road, and there might be some green flag stops. Have you got more on that, Vince?
Yeah, in fact, right now with Joey Logano is he came in the first time after the initial run and said the car was just tight in the center, so they made an adjustment in the left front. And right now, just talking with him about his line, trying to see if he could maybe alter his line a little bit to take away some of that tightness. And as you mentioned, Joey Logano's first time here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on a race weekend, so there's a lot to learn about this place. I mean, there's a lot of veterans still struggling to get around this place, much less rookies. But that man right there, Mr. Zipadelli, if there's anybody that can help a 19-year-old kid get around this place, it's that man.
Ray, if you are Greg Zipadelli, what are your expectations coming here for the first time with a talented but a rookie driver?
Well, I think you want to get him as much experience as you can. You want to keep him on the lead lap. I think that they'd love to have a goal of probably a top 15 for him, but realistically, they know they've got good cars. They know how difficult this place is. I think to continue to watch Joey improve throughout the weekend and be really comfortable at the end of the race, finish on the lead lap is something they can certainly hope for.
And it also helps the driver's confidence knowing I went to Indianapolis against the best in the world at the biggest racetrack in terms of media coverage and was able to finish. Well, one driver knows what it feels like to come here with everybody watching, the world watching, and win it all, and that was Juan Pablo Montoya back in 2000 as a rookie. He won for Chip Ganassi, and they have the retro paint scheme. They used the same paint scheme on the Cup car that they had on the Indy car that year, and it's been good luck so far. He is on the outside front row in qualifying.
Yeah, certainly the guy that has really led the charge of the open wheel group. He's done a tremendous job since he's come over. Chip Ganassi, another owner that's won several times here at this racetrack, but has not won in the stock cars yet. Every year they come here, they have fast cars. They seem to be pretty aggressive with their setup because they qualify well, seem to tie the left front of the car down and maybe get a little too tight in the race. As you can see, they got the left front of that thing tied down right now. You can see how low the left front air dam is. But I believe that they're going to continue to work. Tony Glover and the group over there will work on that race setup, and he could be a real threat here tomorrow.
We talk about how important it is for an entire team to be ready to win this race. Can this team, can Juan Pablo Montoya win the Brickyard 400?
Absolutely, absolutely. They've got they've got a great driver. They've got good engines, and there's a lot of talented people on that team. So they've been up as far as second here, I believe, in Juan's rookie year. As I said, Chip Ganassi and his group know how to win at this place, so they could easily win this race tomorrow.
It'll be very interesting to see lap 1, turn 1, with Mark Martin on the inside and Montoya on the outside, knowing how aggressive Montoya always is at the start of a race.
Yeah, that's what I think they were doing before. Like you said, I think they were over there politicking a little bit for a little bit of room. But, I think that both of them are veteran enough to know that they don't want to be too aggressive at the beginning of this race. It's going to take a little while for things to settle down.
Let's check in on Jeff Gordon. He is 7th quickest right now in the final practice session. They have a brand new race car here for Jeff. And let's check in on his progress. Dave.
Yeah, Doc, been listening to Jeff on the radio, which is absolutely silent. So been kind of watching over him, and I checked with crew chief Steve Letarte as to their progress. Little tight, not bad after the first 7-lap run. Then he did a quick 2-lap run. They worked on it just a little bit. Then he did a quick 2-lap run, and that's when the front bar was changed, the anti-sway bar on that car. And some component in the right rear was either a shock or a spring. So there's still a little field that they're looking for Jeff, and to get him from where he is starting this race, which is deep in the field, to the front of the pack.
Doc, they're probably going to have to adjust that car a little bit differently for him to come through traffic. And then the closer you get to the front, you've got to make a little bit more of a change. And Jeff, being the veteran that he is and knowing this place as well as he does, knows that feel. And that's probably what they're looking for. He's running by himself there, but I won't be surprised if you see them go out later in the session and purposely run behind cars knowing that they're going to have to start in traffic.
So smooth on the racetrack, Jeff Gordon, and you see them watching down there, Steve Letarte and the guys. And we'll remind you that coming up at 7 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN SportsCenter special at the Brickyard. We will set the stage for the 16th running of the Brickyard 400 and talk about the great stories and some of the surprises we may see here on Sunday and how strategies could really play into this race tomorrow. And there's a good chance that some of these guys that aren't running for points, a la Bill Elliott or someone like that, could gamble on a late pit stop and have a shot to steal this race. A.J. Allmendinger came here a year ago and had not had a top 10 finish in NASCAR Sprint Cup competition. When he left here, that was not the case. He got his first top 10 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and now running for the King Richard Petty and doing a pretty good job.
He is, that was a part-time deal, and certainly George Gillette, Richard Petty got together, and they're working hard to make sure that AJ can continue to run the full season. But he's done a great job for him, bringing that car up in points. And Sam Johns, our old buddy over there, brought him out of retirement to be the crew chief on that thing, and they've had some great runs this year.
What do you see here in AJ's practice runs that lets you know a little bit about how good he may be on Sunday?
It looks like that they dropped off probably a little bit more than Sammy wanted them to, and as he runs 10 to 13 there, I don't know if that's a different set of tires. Now, if they've made that gain, if they went from a 52 flat to a 52.30 back to a 52.0, they made a heck of a change right there and made the car better. But I'm just wondering if they changed tires there on run 3.
What do you typically do if you're the crew chief on this last session in terms of changing tires, or how long do you want to leave them on worn tires to see what the car's going to do?
Doc, I always wanted to try and match my tires and my fuel, and in happy hour I always wanted to run the tires as long as they had to run on the racetrack. I don't think by putting on new tires every 10 laps or so you really get an indication of what your car is going to do. And the racetrack does seem to change. When they drop that green flag about 15 laps into a run, your car can be different. So I want to try and run at least a fuel run on a set of tires.
Fans may wonder, how do you measure fuel mileage? As you take a look at the 17 car here, Matt Kenseth, you don't anymore, because of the one engine rule, allow these cars to run out of fuel. So how do you know how far you can go?
Well, Doc, you fill up at the pump, you go out and you make some laps, and then you come in and put fuel in it. You do it the old-fashioned way. They don't have a fuel gauge. They don't have a flow meter. During the race, you weigh the fuel. It tells you how much you've used, and it's laps per tank. You've got to know how much your car can hold. That's very, very key. If it's 18 gallons or 18.5 gallons, that's a big, big difference.
Little drafting from the Busch brothers. Let's see how Kyle and Kurt, that's the order they are in. Kyle in front of the 18, the Toyota, then the Dodge behind him, Kurt Busch. Neither one of these drivers have won here at Indianapolis. And Kyle Busch, as good as he was early on, he has struggled of late and slid back to 10th in the point standings. And this racetrack and Pocono coming up next week have not been good for Kyle Busch over the years.
No, and again, that's something we talked about, that he and Steve Addington as a group have just got to mature. He actually looks pretty good here right now, driving away from the 2-car a little bit, and we know that Kurt has been very good here in the past. So it looks like Kyle's driving away from him pretty good. Both cars look pretty balanced through the corner, so it's got some, looks like Kyle's got a little bit more speed.
It's interesting, you talked to both of these guys earlier, and they talk about they want to be in the chase. Kurt Busch there in the 2-car missed the chase in 2008, and they have really turned this program around over there with Penske and the Dodge. And Kurt Busch says, you know, the more laps I'm on the racetrack, the better we're going to get. And for us, yeah, we want to win the race, but we really want to be in that chase here in 2009. And he leads the contingent in terms of laps run on the racetrack. Were you a proponent of running a lot of laps in happy hour, or running in terms of staying on the racetrack a long time, or running short bursts?
Well, like I said, Doc, we tried to put enough runs together where we knew the tires were up to temperature, the shocks were up to temperature, and we understood what the car was going to do. I didn't want to run a bunch of extra laps to put laps on the motor, because you do run these motors really hard, but you had to run enough laps to understand what your tires and what your car was going to do. So we always tried to run at least a fuel run through happy hour.
And here's a shock. The fastest car on the racetrack is Jimmy Johnson, who won this race a year ago from the pole. Can Jimmy Johnson become the first driver to win it 2 years in a row? Let's go over and check in at O'Reilly Raceway Park with Marty and the gang.
Well, Doc, 21 cars have now taken official times here in qualifying over at the Nationwide Series race at O'Reilly Raceway Park. Trevor Bayne is still on top with a 22.3-second run. And on the track right now is the 66 of Stephen Wallace.
You know what? Stephen's all pumped up. Him and Brendan Gaughan, his teammate, were right next to each other in practice. Brendan Gaughan is sitting 4th right now. He's like, okay, I'm going to get me a top 5 qualifying run here.
Brendan ran a 22.54-second best lap, and here comes Stephen across the stripe for his first effort, and he slots in number 2, 22.445.
That's the quickest first lap, so if he keeps it up on his second lap, he's going to be awesome.
He's looking good right now. They changed a lot of chassis stuff down there a little while ago and told me they were a little concerned about the qualifying, but it felt really good for the race. But right now they're looking really good.
Lap tracker, whoa, awfully close to the wall, and second lap, 22.480. So a very strong run for Stephen Wallace, and he'll slot into the number 2 position outside the front row for tonight's race that starts at 7:30 over on ESPN. Now, you know, we have double-duty drivers, so none of those guys are going to make it over for qualifying. Take a look at what happened a little earlier on the 60 car. This is Colin Brown, and he came around. He turned 1 lap at 31.7 seconds. Now, the pole is 22.2, and notice the stickers are still on the car.
There was just nothing to gain by even trying to run fast at all, because he's got to start in the back, and so does the 18 car. He's got to start in the back also, because he's not going to start this qualifying. He's in the very back. He's been over to big track running. So look how slow they're running. They don't want to burn any extra fuel, and they don't want to put any heat in these tires. Just idling around there.
These guys, they know they want all the grip they can. The first 5 laps of this race is going to be very exciting with the 4 guys that are coming over from Indianapolis big track.
Well, at least Johnny Saunders can say he out-qualified Colin Brown. He ran 26.87 seconds as he shuts it off. And
well, Marty, I've just never seen strategy like this before. It just looks odd seeing these cars run around. They're so slow, but hey, there's nothing to gain. Their pits are already picked. They got to start in the back anyway, so there you have it.
let's talk to our current pole sitter. Shannon, you're with Trevor Bayne.
Well, Marty, if you were listening in on the radio when Trevor made his lap, you would have heard one very happy 18-year-old. You said it was very good in qualifying. What do you think it's going to race like?
I hope it's going to stay good. I mean, they say this place tightens up a lot, but our car was really free in qualifying, a lot freer than practice. So I'm looking forward to starting this race. Got Gary Bechtel here now and his son Blake, so really pumped to have him here this weekend. Going to have a good time tonight.
All right, Gary Bechtel, of course, is the one who's really helping Trevor with this program, backing him and giving him an opportunity in this series.
And right now we're looking at Brad 21-year-old from Houston, Texas, as he is awfully close to moving into the green as he's coming out of turn number 4. Take a look at the clock and into the number 2 spot, 22.32 seconds.
He looked really good in practice, guys. I was pretty impressed how his car looked, and the kid's really excited about it. He knows that Joey Logano has won in his car before. He wants to get it done. And look at our tracker. That second lap really flew through turn 1 and 2, Randy.
That's right, both times, right through the center of the corner. Will he keep it?
Does he get it? No, 22.347 right at the end, coming out of 4. He slid just enough. It scrubbed off enough speed, and that means Trevor Bayne dodges another bullet. You know, Bayne could join a list that only 3 other guys have gotten their first Nationwide Series pole here at ORP. That was Brett Bodine back in '85, Michael Waltrip, his car owner, in '89, and Ward Burton in '91.
This is the last bullet I think he might have to dodge.
Yeah, you take a look at Brad Keselowski right here. His pit selection was Drew how he qualified last week. So he's got the number 1 pit selection for tonight's race. Let's see what he looks like in lap number 1. Car looks good getting into turn 1 so far. Guys, the preferred groove here is about right in the middle of the racetrack for qualifying. This racetrack's flatter on the bottom of the groove than it is the second, third lane, so you don't want to run dead on the bottom.
Boy, the tracker is heading south through 3 and 4. First lap is not going to be good enough. And it slots him in the number 12 position, 22.63 seconds.
Yeah, well, one more lap to go here. And we've seen a tenth to maybe 2/10 of a second all throughout qualifying. They've been picking up in that second lap, so he could gain a lot on this second lap.
Well, we're staying right there. You look at that tracker. He's right there. He inched towards it a little bit. He lost a little bit coming out of 4.
And as he comes across the line, he will improve up to the number 5 spot. That's where he practiced. He was 5th quick there. He's 5th quick now at 22.5 seconds. And guys, the word we're hearing is he is still going to head over to Indianapolis Motor Speedway to get fitted for a seat, just in case Dale Jr. can't race. He may have some problems over there. He's still under the weather.
I can promise you one thing. That kid will get better. He'll make it. Dale Jr. will be just fine.
Well, there it is right now. So Brad's going to be in the 5th spot for now. Trevor Bayne is still on pole, Doc, as we're going to send it back over to you at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as qualifying continues here at O'Reilly Raceway Park.
Thank you very much, Marty. And, of course, Brad Keselowski headed here. If you didn't hear the story, Dale Earnhardt Jr. had a stomach virus on Thursday night and was taking a lot of fluids. Wasn't feeling good at all yesterday. And this morning, a little bit puny, but said he would get in the car and see what he could do. And guess what, folks? He put that car inside of row number 2. He will start 3rd here tomorrow. And Dale Earnhardt Jr. could become just the 2nd father-son duo to win at Indianapolis, joining Al Unser Sr. and Al Unser Jr. Of course, his famous father won this race back in 1995.
And Junior on some new tires that ought to make him feel better. New tires always make a sick driver feel a little bit better. We do think he's going to be all right, but it is precautionary. Brad Keselowski has to drive at least 1 lap to be able to substitute for Junior tomorrow. But, Doc, you know, we talked about it before, getting fluids back in him, things like that. As long as he doesn't seem to have a head cold or head pressure, it's a stomach virus, and he's probably in better shape than if he did have a head cold or something like that.
Vince?
Well, the big concern with Dale Jr. as I visited with Lance McGrew on that topic is just the fact that you've been sick to the stomach and you've had the need for IVs, which gives you an indication of how much fluid he has lost over the last couple of days. You just don't have that strength. You do feel, as Doc said, kind of puny. So they weren't going to work Dale Jr. particularly hard in this practice. They ran 10 laps in the first session, came in, he got out of the car, relaxed a little bit, caught his breath. They put fresh rubber on, made some chassis adjustments, and sent him back out. So certainly keeping an eye on Dale Jr. from a strength standpoint, and also just trying to get his race car comfortable. It hasn't been a good stretch for Jr. 10 straight finishes outside the top 10. He says the way it yayed on the last run and made it looser, he liked that. He just doesn't want it to get too loose. So we'll see how it handles here in this second run. Dave?
Well, Vince, we're talking tires here at the Speedway this weekend, and of course we all know that Goodyear brought a brand new, well-tested tire here. So we checked on Ryan Newman, who was one of the cars that took his tires off at 20 laps. These are not the actual tires. Those were whisked away, but they were perfect. And the tire specialists down here, among them Ryan's guy, Ray Ocean, are very pleased with what Goodyear was done. In fact, he looked at me and he said, hey, give Goodyear a plug. They did a good job. And one of the other tire testers said, we should have it right. Tire specialist said that we should have it right. We've tested here 800 times. So far, the wear looks very good on these tires, Doc.
Dave, and that's exactly what Greg Biffle in that 16 car told me the other night at a charity function. He said, you know, I cannot say enough about what Goodyear has done here. 7 different tests, 11 months they worked on this tire. 30 drivers came here and ran over 14,000 miles. And Greg Biffle very, very pleased with what they've done here and pleased with what his car has done here over the weekend. Jamie.
And he's definitely making progress. He's about to come back in, and when he does, well, right now you see him pull onto pit road. He has about 18 laps on those tires right now. They're going to bring him in, take the tires off, and inspect it. Now, what's been happening with him in practice? He said he just lost all turnability. So they made a right rear spring change and a track bar adjustment. I believe that has helped him. He's 8th right now. Remember, he was 23rd on the board yesterday. So they're definitely making progress in the 16 cam.
Here's Jimmy Johnson again. Thank you, Jamie. Back on the racetrack, and he continues to come in and out and trying to dial this car in, I guess, and Chad Canals planning for every contingency in terms of what's going to happen here tomorrow.
Yeah, Doc, it looks like they're still on the same set of tires, you know, running laps. And as the rubber's starting to get down, it seems like the tire wear is going away or even getting better. It seems the guys are running a little over 20 laps before they change, and that's more than half of a fuel run in here. And if that's an indicator, it looks like Goodyear has done an incredible job. We have seen no tire issues.
Ray, when these cars drop off, we're talking about when the times drop off, as they talk about a second after 20 laps, then they plateau for a little while before you have any issues?
Yeah, Doc, you know, you'll lose probably, it looks like this tire loses about a second in the first 10 to 15 laps, and then it plateaus off, and then it'll start to drop again get towards the end of a fuel run. But I'm waiting for some of the guys to come out on fresh tires to see how big of a difference that is.
Let's check in on Jimmy Johnson as he is now being under attack by A.J. Allmendinger. Dave?
And Doc, here's something Ray knows very well. It can take a great relationship between driver and crew chief to win at the Brickyard. This is the radio communication that Chad said to his driver during his last run on the track.
If that's all you had there that last lap, bring it in.
Jimmy decided to stay on the track for 2 more laps because he had a little bit more, he thought, to give to the race car. Then Chad said this.
I think we should probably work on it, bud.
As nice as he could, but I think we should probably work on it, because whatever Jimmy had to give, Chad trusted him to give it. But when the times came back over the clock, Chad realized that they actually did need to work on the race car. So that's crew chief trusting driver and driver trusting crew chief.
And there he is. I am so incredibly proud of that guy right there, because he has worked so hard. I mean, there's a guy that came and worked for almost nothing at 24 shops, slept in the back of a car. He's one of those success stories, and now all he ever wanted to be was a championship crew chief, and boy, he is certainly the best in the business right now.
And he is the first crew chief to win 3 in a row with Jimmy Johnson the last 3 years. Jimmy Johnson slowing down. Let's go over to ORP and check in with the Nationwide cars.
All right, Doc, back here at O'Reilly Raceway Park, qualifying for tonight's Nationwide Series race, still continuing. And the top 3 have been staying consistent since we last talked to you. In the 3rd spot right now, Stephen Wallace, his best lap at 22.44 seconds. Came awfully close to the wall in the final turn, but managed to hold on. And then there's 19-year-old Brad Coleman at 22.32 seconds. And that number 20, Joe Gibbs Toyota, continues to perform well, and Coleman looking for a win. And then there's young 18-year-old Trevor Bain, still sitting on point, 22.29 seconds in the number 99 Aaron's Camry.
All 3 of those guys don't even add up to Hornaday's AJ.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that. Yeah, mine, and I was really going to get worried. All right, take a look at the top 10 in points, or in qualifying right now, and you can see behind Wallace, it's Darnell and Lagacy, and Scott, you know, he's out of this ride after 2 more races tonight and next week in Iowa, at least for 2 stops after that. And then all the way down to Stephen Light, rounding out the top 10. And on track coming at you right now, hello, Mike Wallace. Wallace.
Yeah, Mike won the race here in 1994. It's been fantastic at this racetrack. And Randy, I think you were racing that time, that particular race. I raced with him throughout the day.
You know, that's when he was working with old Barry Owens, and he had that car. He
locked that left front up pretty hard.
You know, he whistled her in there, and he drove that car for Barry Owens, and they called it Reba. And boy, that car was just fast, and what a fabulous race. I was sitting 7th. These guys were 3, 4 wide in front of me. I was like, just crash, and I'll be okay.
Well, Mike in the 23.10 seconds, and he is the first of the go or go homers. So we'll be keeping track of how well these guys perform. As he comes out of 4, gets a little close to the wall, comes across at 23.13 seconds. So that puts him in the number 25 spot again. It's all a matter of where the go or go homers qualify. And you heard Rusty talk about his win back in 1994. Well, let's show you. And where were you watching this from, Mr. LeJoy?
About 6 back. Durlow, I was 3 back.
Well, there it was under the yellow, and he comes across, and he took the win. Started 5th, finished 1st. That's all that mattered that night. As there he is pulling it into pit lane. And he'll now have to wait it out to see if that time will stand up and get him into tonight's race that you'll see here starting with countdown at 7:30 on ESPN. Taking a look right now at Joe Ruttman.
Tell you, Joe Ruttman, I raced with Joe Ruttman a lot up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and ran on the USAC series. It was myself and A.J. Foyt and Joe and a lot of guys. This guy won everything. I mean, I'm surprised to see him still racing, but you know, once you're a racer, man, it's hard to get it out of you. It really is.
You know, Russ, you said you raced with him at 64 years old. There's a lot of guys that have raced with Joe Ruttman.
You know, wait, but I'm not 64 now, okay?
Joe has 2 poles here in the Truck Series at O'Reilly Raceway Park, and he won it back in 2000. He was driving for Jack Roush at the time.
Every time I see that car, guys, it reminds me of Dave Marcus's. Marcus's car was blue, number 71. Real reminiscent of what Dave did.
Ruttman's first lap, 23.20. His second one, 23.01. That moves him into 23rd, ahead of Mike Wallace.
We're all into the go or go home cars right now. Mike Wallace was the first car to go. Now we got Morgan Shepherd coming up next right now. Morgan's another guy who's got to make it on speed. And probably one of my sentimental favorites. I'm always pulling for Morgan. Does all this out of his pocket, works hard. Tony Stewart helps him. Kevin Harvick helps him. Got a little help out there.
He is the all-time win leader here in the Nationwide Series. He has 3 back in 82, 84, and 88. And if you weren't with us earlier, listen to this one. 18 drivers attempting to make the field tonight were born after Morgan won his first race here back in 1983.
And Morgan is still such a fiery competitor. We've seen him earlier on his skates fall down earlier this year. But he could go around this place with his eyes closed and still have a really good run.
You see the lap tracker as he comes across. Morgan up to the 20th spot, 22.85 seconds.
Outruns 2 of the go or go home guys right off the bat, so he's the number 1 guy so far in that category. And remember, the second lap's been better almost every single car, so Morgan picks up a little bit, and it looks like he's going to.
Ooh, you see the slip right there coming through between 3 and 4. Takes the time at 22.764, keeps him 20th. And boy, he needs this because he has failed to qualify in 3 of the last 4 races after making 13 of the first 14.
It's a pretty good lap for him, though, guys. 22.76, picked up about 1/10 of a second. He needed that.
Yeah, I got to believe that's going to be good enough to hold on and,
I do too.
Be around for tonight's show. And like I said, he needs it. How about Bobby Hamilton Jr.? If he makes the field tonight, it'll be his 250th career start in the NASCAR Nationwide Series.
And Bobby Hamilton told us earlier, he said, I feel really good about this race. This is my own car. I'm not driving somebody else's stuff. And we all know Bobby can win. He's done so good on the short tracks in the past, guys. And he's got his own car. He's got a lot of momentum on his side, although he's really nervous, though. He said, I got to get in by time, and I don't want to miss this race.
As much experience as Bobby has, you know, it's still not easy to come and compete when you don't do it week in and week out.
Well, right now, 22.84 seconds. That puts him second to Morgan Shepherd right now. Shepherd's actually quicker than Bobby is, but like I said earlier, the second lap's been picking up for everybody.
Watching lap tracker, he's still down on the southern side. Comes out of turn number 4. Whoa, so close to the wall. Second lap, no real help. 22.77 seconds, but he is second quick of the go or go homers of the 4 that have gone. So right now, Trevor Bayne at age 18 is still on point. Average age of the first 2 rows is 21, Doc.
What a great story across town, O'Reilly Raceway Park. The 18-year-old from Knoxville, Tennessee, getting a chance to be able to get in a NASCAR nationwide car and maybe get it on the pole at the age of 18. Let's set our menu for what's coming up here for the remainder of the night. NHRA qualifying coming your way at Sonoma tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern time, following our live coverage here of Happy Hour. And, of course, the finals from Sonoma tomorrow at 9:30 Eastern time on ESPN2. Live coverage, flag to flag, of the NASCAR Nationwide Series, O'Reilly Raceway Park. That begins at 7:30 Eastern time tonight. Marty Reed and the gang. And, of course, flag to flag, the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series 16th running of the Brickyard 400 presented by Golden Corral tomorrow, 12:30 Eastern time, beginning with NASCAR Countdown. You want to set the stage? We can do it with NASCAR Now, presented by 5 Hour Energy tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time. We'll talk about all the great stories, and of course later tomorrow night we will tell you all that happened here on the Brickyard, and we'll update it with interviews. NASCAR Now, 12:30 a.m. Eastern time.
And Doc, we're looking out the in-car camera from Dale Jr., and you can see that shadow on the wall. We're starting to see there some more rubber get blacked down, and we've run over 1,000 laps between all the cars, so the track is getting plenty of rubber on it, but it is cool and it got some grip. You know, Junior hasn't really run that many laps. Maybe it's because he doesn't feel good, but I think that he's going to have to run some more laps. I don't think he's as good as he needs to be to win this race tomorrow.
Vince?
Well, one indication, and we've talked a lot about the fact that Dale Jr. hasn't been feeling well this weekend, but maybe one indication that he is feeling a little bit better is the fact that Brad Keselowski will not take any laps in the Cup car this afternoon during this happy hour practice. So Dale Jr. is planning on going the distance tomorrow. Not that there was really any doubt about that, but for sure that's the case, as they've decided not to put Keselowski in the race car. Now, as far as Dale Jr. physically, getting better. How about what the race car is feeling like? We listened in on the radio.
Yeah, that's way better to me. It's kind of too free off to be as aggressive, yanking it into the entrance. Like it could probably do more for me on entrance if the right rear was tied up a little bit on exit. But it's so free off that I can't jerk it down in, turn it down in real hard.
You hear as Dale Jr. talks about how the race car handles on entry and in the middle and on the exit. And that's really, Ray Evernham, one of the struggles of this racetrack, isn't it? The corners here are so big and so different in all 4 corners, and it's hard to get a handle on this racetrack all the way around.
It really is, and you've got to, again, get through the center of that corner. And what happens here sometimes is you get so tight in the center of the corner, meaning the car won't turn, that you turn the steering wheel so far to the left that when the car slides up out of the groove, it actually snaps loose and the back end gets into the wall.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. has led laps here the last 2 years. He has run in the Brickyard 400, led 33 laps back in 2007. Had a good car, faded late. And, of course, last year led 8 laps, finishing just outside the top 10 in 12th position. The good news for Dale Jr., maybe you Dale Earnhardt Jr. fans, is that he is driving for Rick Hendrick, and that is the winningest team in Brickyard 400 history. They have won, Hendrick, I should say, has won 6 times here, 4 with Jeff Gordon and twice with Jimmy Johnson.
And, Doc, I'm looking at the board, and, you know, right now at positions 4, 5, 6, and 7, those guys have run a lot of laps. You know, you've got Newman, Kane, Martin, Stewart, and all the way back to Gordon. You know, those guys are putting the laps down, and they look very consistent.
They indeed do. It's going to be very close. What about Brian Vickers? Now, he is being shown right now 10th on the speed charts. He is the car right behind the Old Spice Chevy there, right behind Tony Stewart.
Now, Brian looks really good there. He's had some good runs here, and of lately, since Ryan Pemberton came on board over there, they seem to have gotten certainly a little bit more competitive. But he's running with a guy right there he's going to need to run with tomorrow. Again, I think that 14 car is pretty strong, so it's a good judge for that 83 of really where they're at.
Great guy to learn, as you're talking about. I guess if you want to learn how to drive this racetrack, why not follow Tony Stewart and sort of like watching Tiger Woods putt?
Yeah, and then, well, we know that with A.J. Foyt hanging around this week and he being Tony's hero, he's probably got some good tips. So if he got the tips from A.J., he certainly knows his way around here.
And you will, by the way, be able to hear from A.J. Foyt and Tony Stewart as they sit at the Yard of Bricks during our NASCAR Countdown show tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And you don't want to miss that, folks. A.J. Foyt, one of my heroes, of course, growing up, and a lot of people, and of course, that was Tony Stewart's hero, and that's why he has the 14 on his car here that he owns.
And you watch through the windshield of that car and watch Tony drive down into the corner and through the corner. Very little movement watching those gloves, Doc, and that tells me that car is really working good. And we'll watch his hands as he goes through. Very little movement, picking up the throttle nice and easy. You can motor turns down in the corner. Turn a little, maybe a little bit tight, not a lot of correction. Unwinding that wheel a little bit and back in the throttle firmly.
He looked so comfortable in the car. And I mean, we were really seeing a very relaxed Tony Stewart throughout this season. You would think that becoming an owner of a NASCAR Sprint Cup team and all the pressures and stress that he would go the other way, but he has absolutely been relaxed, and these guys here maybe are a part of that. He is the points leader right now by 175 points over Jeff Gordon.
I spoke to Bobby Hutchins yesterday and told him what a great job that they've all done, and they've done that and still kept about 80% of that original company intact. So even though they had the equipment, they had the people, just a few management changes and attitude, certainly some new talent behind the wheel, and Tony has turned the competition over to Bobby Hutchins and Darian Grubb and let his business people do things. You know, we're seeing a dimension. Tony Stewart has a lot more depth than we ever gave him credit for. We knew he's a great race car driver, but now he's a great businessman. And, Kevin Harvick's back out this year.
Kevin Harvick back on the racetrack, and we talked about the frustrations they have had this year, but yesterday in the final practice session and in qualifying, this car getting better and better. Of course, Kevin, a former winner of this race back in 2003.
It's a great shot, great camera work, and as the cars go down in the corner there, you know, when Carl Edwards said before, corner entry is the whole thing, and you can listen to who's really on the throttle, early brakes, whether the car's moving around. Looks like Kevin's car's moving around a little bit getting down into the corner, Doc.
Richard Childress was telling us last night that this is the newest generation car that his guys have been working on around the clock, and the RCR guys, that Kevin Harvick has it, as does Clint Boyer, and obviously just subtle changes in these cars makes a big difference.
It really does. You know, again, we keep saying it, and well, you wonder if that's not just because of the competition. You know, the competition is so close, little things make a bigger difference now.
Guys working around the clock trying to get. It's unbelievable right now that the Richard Childress Racing guys don't. None of those three guys are, four guys are in the top 12 right now in points, but they still have 7 races to go to be able to have a chance to get in the chase. We're going to step aside for a moment here, but we're going to remind you that tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern Time, you don't want to miss our coverage live, flag to flag, of the 16th running of the Brickyard 400 presented by Golden Corral. We'll be right back with more Happy Hour in just a moment. That shot right there is from the blimp above our racetrack, and it shows you O'Reilly Raceway Park, which is exactly 6.1 miles as the crow flies, or the blimp flies, from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We'll be going over there tonight for live coverage of the NASCAR Nationwide Series race at 7:30 Eastern Time on ESPN. And we're going to come all the way back across Speedway, Indiana, and there we are at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as the drivers are finishing up the final practice session or happy hour. And it is still Jimmy Johnson atop the speed charts. He is the quickest. Carl Edwards, second quickest overall after a disappointing qualifying effort. Edwards will start back in 41st tomorrow. Joey Logano, Ryan Newman, and Casey Kane, that is the top 5. Aerial coverage provided by our good friends at Goodyear, the official tire of NASCAR. New Fuel Max tires help you have a winning fuel strategy. Well, what about the guys who are maybe looking at some fuel strategy and running a lot of laps here in this session?
Yeah, Doc, and I'm going to tell you that, you look at Tony Stewart, Ryan Newman, Casey Kane, Greg Biffle. Those guys have all been among the fastest cars. Now, Jeff Burton, we know, starting in the back, so maybe he's looking at a little bit different strategy, using fuel to get up there or just working on his car. But, boy, I've been impressed with the consistency of the 14, the 39, and the 9. And I'm going to tell you, the 5 cars not very far behind them on that total laps list.
Update us on Ryan Newman here, Dave.
I will do that, Doc. Ryan is out of the car right now for a lengthy change, which includes the gear, rear end gear, and also the drive shaft on that car. Ryan is not unhappy with the handling of this car. They're just tweaking that a little bit, but there is a slight vibration that they've been chasing, and after conferring with General Manager Bobby Hutchins, he said they had something similar that happened to them at Chicago. So in the better safe than sorry category, they will change out that drive shaft and that rear end gear and just make sure that was perhaps the cause of it, and see if they can get rid of that slight vibration.
Well, I'll tell you, Indianapolis, Pocono, Michigan, the places that are long and flat are places that these cars have always picked up vibration. If the drive shaft is a little bit off center, or you've got a little bit out of balance in your rear gear, it just tingles. The straightaway is so long that the drive shaft actually starts to whip almost out of shape, Doc.
All that torque and all the RPMs there, as you see Ryan Newman talking to his crew chief Tony Gibson. There's the 47 car of Marcus Ambrose, and we were talking during qualifying about how many heads this driver has turned in NASCAR Sprint Cup. They knew it was pretty good as a road racer. They said, well, yeah, but it's a big transition to the oval tracks. This young man's done a heck of a job this year.
Really is. Heard a lot of things coming out of V8 supercars, what a great driver he is, and I think he impresses everybody every week. Just doing a super job. Great guy to be around. Wants to have a good finish. I think that he and Frankie Kerr are a good combination. He did a great job qualifying here. He knows what he's got to do to get a good finish, and certainly a guy like him might not be a threat to win, but a top 10 would be a great day for him.
When he was first starting out his road racing career in Australia, they sent him to England to see how he would measure up against some of the future Formula One stars. And in the British Formula Ford Festival, he out-qualified and outran Jenson Button and Kimi Räikkönen. So, and then they sent him home. They said, uh-oh, you can't do that. You got to go back to Australia. So then his Formula One aspirations were over. So he ends up coming to this country and jumping in a stock car and again proving that he is a talent.
Well, somebody got fired over that, huh, Doc?
Well, what's the deal bringing this kid from Australia to show up our guys here in Formula One? But we'll see what Marcus Ambrose can do. Good qualifying effort for Ambrose. He will start 11th here tomorrow. Vince?
But, Doc, one of the things that's been impressive about Marcus Ambrose is he always seems to be even-keeled. Of course, he's always fun out of the car because he's always got that happy demeanor, which we always appreciate. But as Marcus got out of the car after that last run, he spent a lot of time outside the car, yet the team didn't make significant changes. Marcus was happy with the race car. They were pretty close, said they just wanted to take their time and be patient because he was comfortable enough that they wanted to make sure they didn't dial themselves out for tomorrow. Sometimes you can outthink yourself. I think Marcus Ambrose, that's one of the strengths that he has. He's patient, and he doesn't try to tinker, and ended up getting himself out of the ball game. So we'll see if that pays off for him tomorrow. It's been pretty positive so far here in this practice session.
And he looks very comfortable in the car, not moving. You see those red gloves, not moving that steering wheel very much at all. There at the top of your screen is Carl Edwards. He is second quickest in happy hour, and starting way back in the back of the pack, 41st. We will tell you, though, 4 times this year, 2009, the driver who won the NASCAR Sprint Cup race started last, starting at the back of the pack, so it can be done.
Yeah. Well, Doc, I'll tell you, you can win from the back, but this is one of those tracks where track position is critical. So these are the guys that we might have to see use a little no-tire or 2-tire strategy to get him up towards the front, because he's going to have to work his way up, I think, up into that top 15 using a little bit of strategy, because this isn't the kind of place where you really can't drive up there. Another good idea would be, as much as we're seeing these tires drop off, he could short pit. If he pits early and the caution falls not too long after he pits, he'll get him up there. there. Just more or less what you see at Sears Point when they pit early, boom, a caution comes out and you're up front.
And you can do that here or at Pocono because you can short pit and everyone else comes in. And even if you get a lap down because of the size of the racetrack, you got the wave around. You got so many things that can work in your favor. Dave?
And checked in with these guys and told them I've been trying to stay out of the way because I know they're working hard to try to find the speed in this car. And car chief Pierre Cattell confirmed that they are making progress. We see him second on the board in fastest lap time overall for Carl. And I asked him if they were creeping up more on speed or feel, and he said a little bit of both. They've been going through some systematic changes, which in his definition means we get some good things, we get some bad things. We try to keep the good and work in as many of those as possible. Doc?
Not over yet.
Happy hour continuing here. Why don't we check in over at O'Reilly Raceway Park as they are getting set for racing tonight and finishing up NASCAR Nationwide Series qualifying. Let's check in with Marty Reed.
Okay, Doc, over here at O'Reilly Raceway Park, we're down to the last couple of cars in qualifying, and this is all part of the go or go home group as Trevor Bayne has withstood the onslaught and is still on pole at the age of 18. The second to last car, Austin Dillon, grandson of Richard Childress. And you can see the time he's going to have to beat is compared to Dennis Setzer, who is on the bubble right now in the go or go home category.
We've seen that familiar number 2 on the Nationwide Series here. We've seen Kevin Harvick in that car. We've seen Clint Boyer in that car. They both won with it. Boy, Austin sails that thing down into turn 1 really deep.
You know, his nerves have got to be, you know, this is about his 4th nationwide attempt, and he just wants to make a good showing.
Oh, yeah, the biggest thing he's got to do is get in the race right now.
Oh, he's taking care of business.
He's locked in. He's looking good. 22.76. Good run out of Austin.
So that puts him in, and it bumps out and sends the 26 of Brian Keselowski home. We can also tell you the 71 of Joe Ruttman is going to go home. John West Townley is not going to make the field, and Mike Wallace is not going to make the field as well. He comes across, and the second lap just a little bit slower, 22.8 seconds. And so while he's on the cool down lap, and we'll be ready for our last Scott Wimmer, there is Kyle Busch inbound from over at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as he makes his way over on what has been a very long day for all these guys that are doing double duty, and then they have to turn right around and get up bright and early tomorrow and do it all one more time.
That's why they get paid the big bucks.
Now that landing area is outside turn 3. Give you an idea. So here is Scott Wimmer. He's in the number 5 as JR Motorsports has to get in on time.
Scott was pretty doggone good in practice. He looked great in this car. This is Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s car. And Scott is fantastic at these short tracks. We've seen him win many times on the short tracks up in Wisconsin. Tracks like this, guys, I expect a lot out of this car tonight if he makes the race.
Well, he's in. Wimmer, 31st, quickest overall, 22.9, and that means that Dennis Setzer is the last one to be bumped from this field. So it's Mike Wallace, John West Townley, Joe Ruttman, Dennis Setzer, all heading south along with Brian Keselowski.
You see Wimmer picking up a lot on this second lap. I mean, quite a bit of speed. You see our tracker really gaining. And now it moves him all the way up to 15th.
Very nice second lap. Picks up almost 0.3 of a second to 22.63. And as you said, Rusty, he's now number 15. And it's all official. We now have the 3rd youngest pole winner in Nationwide Series history. And you're looking at him, Trevor Bayne, behind Casey Atwood and Joey Logano. Shannon?
Trevor Bayne, a very happy, as you said, 18-year-old. But this is your first pole, but you've had in the past 5 starts 5 top 12 starts. So what have you learned about starting up front that you're going to be able to use here today?
Well, it's important, especially at this kind of track. You got to be up front because track position's everything. It's really hard to pass here. But now you put the question in my head, which line do you take? I mean, you go high or low. I mean, everybody runs the top here, so now we got a decision. We want to start on the inside or outside. But I'm really happy happy with this team. This Air Industry machine's been good all day, and it's even better in qualifying. Got people picking on me over here. What in the world? But Gary Bechtel got to be here for it as well, so I couldn't be any happier right now.
Great day for Trevor Bayne, and he was talking about the fact that he's a pole sitter, so he gets to choose the line that he starts, the outside or the inside. He said, I'm going to let my crew chief, Jerry Baxter, handle that decision. So, Jerry, you got a decision coming your way. Marty?
And probably a good move. There is Mr. Bechtel. He mentioned him there. So he's congratulating his young driver. Let's take a look at the top 10. The average age of the first 2 rows, 21, fellas. Take a look. Boy, a lot of youth being served up front.
Boy, there really is. I mean, the top 3 guys are under 21 years old, and Eric Darnell, good running. Scott Legacy, he's got to get it done. He's got pressure on him right now. And what about Hornaday, guys?
You know what? He's all pumped up. We want to take this thing, and we're going to see a great race tonight.
It's going to be starting at 7:30. In fact, it's less than an hour from now. And we'll be on with Countdown, and then follow with the 28th edition of the nationwide race here at O'Reilly Raceway Park. Doc, it's going to be fun. We'll see you then.
Thank you, Marty. So much youth at the front of the field over there. And then here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we've got 2 drivers, 50-plus, starting in the front 2 rows with Mark Martin, the pole sitter at 50 years of age, and Bill Elliott at 53, starting 4th.
We got old guys on the track, old guys here in the booth. This is the experience plays over here at the big track. But you know, right now we got had a couple guys jump up on the board there a little bit. The 11 of Danny Hamlin. Now the 5 car just jumped up, certainly up to 3rd, but the 18 and the 11 have jumped up.
Let's look at these 5-lap averages for a second, and you really want to see this consistency over lap after lap after lap in Indianapolis. And Denny Hamlin, a guy who nearly won this race a year ago, really consistent at 174+ miles an hour.
And we talked before, Mike Ford, crew chief on this car, has got a lot of experience, got a couple wins here, one with Dale Jarrett, one with Bill Elliott. The only thing I would be concerned about is it is getting darker and cooler here. It gets late. The track has picked up quite a bit. Both those guys put new tires on. Dave, if you got something you can add to that.
Well, just with Denny Hamlin, guys, this is a finally. That's the relief sigh that Mike Ford, the crew chief, is saying right now. He walks outside the garage after every lap Denny runs to make sure the radio transmission is clear. But what is clear right now is that this car had some gremlins at the beginning of this session, and they've gotten them worked out, and they've got speed in the race car. This power steering felt rough to Denny at the beginning of this practice session. He didn't like that. He had something rattling in the right side of the car. He didn't like that. They've got it figured out, and now they're quick. Jamie?
And a little update on Mark Martin, who's getting quicker as well. He was 9th on the board for a while. They came in, they made a small adjustment, went back out on sticker tires. He jumped up 3 spots, came back in, they made an adjustment to the left front and put sticker tires on, went back out, and he's jumped up to 3rd. I'm talking to this team, guys. They are pumped up. They said we would not be surprised to see Mark Martin in victory lane tomorrow. This car is a rocket.
And if you ask Mark Martin, Jamie, about the prospects of winning tomorrow, he'll say, don't talk to me about that. I don't want to think about it. He's the kind of guy that wants to live in the now. I'm worried about what's happening in this turn on this lap and what's going to happen tomorrow. Although I've got to believe now that he's the pole sitter when he goes back to the hotel or the motorhome tonight, I wonder how much sleep he'll actually get, because this is pretty special.
I'll tell you, you know, even though you're a veteran and you've done all that, it is very hard to sleep the night before a big race. And that's from crew chiefs to drivers to owners. There's just a level of excitement about racing here, especially when you know you have a car that has been that strong.
Well, you go from a 50-year-old that's been around so much to a 19-year-old. What do you think this guy's night will be like? Thinking about jumping in, trying to fill the shoes in a car that's won this race twice.
I'll tell you, I'm so impressed with this kid. We spent a little bit of time with him today. You know, even though he is only 19, he's very mature in racing. He understands what he wants. He knows how to keep things in check. I have seen him do some incredible things in modifieds and nationwide cars. I think he knows what to expect here. He's going to have that same level of excitement. But the best thing he has in his corner are the people behind him, the Greg Zippindelli and Joe Gibbs, people people with all that experience that can keep him focused.
We keep talking about Greg, but you cannot say enough. You mentioned it. Joe Gibbs, J.D. Gibbs, that organization there. They put the right people in the right places to make sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed, just like Joe did when he was winning Super Bowls with the Redskins. It's all about putting the right people, hiring the right people, and then letting them do their job.
Yeah, the same formula. Joe has a great eye for recognizing talent, and he puts them in position, and he's got a calming effect when he comes in there and talks to those guys, and he's passed some of that down to J.D. Run that place, but you can bet that Joe Gibbs, the boss, will be here tomorrow, and he'll kind of put his hand on everybody's shoulders and put those guys at ease a little bit and help them focus on their job.
One of the big questions for the year was, what about Dale Earnhardt Jr.? When would he find his mojo? When would he get back to victory lane? Everyone said if we can just get him there one time, suddenly the switch will flip and we'll see the old Junior. Well, guess what? They've got a brand new race car, the newest design from Hendrick, and Dale Jr. starting third, battling some illness, but a fast race car. And could he be the guy that joins his famous father as a father-son Brickyard 400 winner?
Well, certainly, you know, he's part of a team that's got a great amount of information from today, from Jimmy Johnson, Mark Martin, Jeff Gordon. Those are fast cars. Lance McGrew is a great guy on the radio. He knows how to call a race. He's very good with his driver. So they can't expect to just jump up and start winning races, but I feel like I see constant improvement from that group every week, Doc.
And what a place would it be for him to win. We mentioned that the only other father-son team to win at this track was Al Unser Sr. and Al Jr. in IndyCar competition. So many great stories to talk about here at Indianapolis. Could we see an Indy 500 winner win the Brickyard 400? Could we see another Earnhardt go to victory lane? Could we have a 50-year-old winner, Mark Martin, at the 100-year-old racetrack? And let's check in on the one car, Martin Truex. Vince?
Well, it's been a pretty good weekend for the Ganassi team. Earnhardt Ganassi, of course, Juan Pablo Montoya qualifying on the front row. Martin Truex qualified 13th, has been fairly pleased with his car up until this practice, and then he gave us a little rundown on the radio on how the car was handling on the racetrack now.
I'm not sure. I think it's because the nose is down, because I come off at 2 and I turn into 3 and try to let off, and that's where I'm real edgy loose. Same in turn 4. 1 and 3 I'm good at high speed, but the other 2 is where I have my problem.
Now to try to fix those issues, they went up a half-pound of put a half-pound of wedge in the entire car, went up on the right side track bar, made a tire pressure adjustment, and right now getting a trying to get a handle on the fuel run. They're going about 7 or 8 laps and get a good fuel read here. So a lot to work on during the course of a final happy hour practice, and certainly the one car of Martin Truex Jr. and his team has been doing just that.
Thanks, Vince. We were talking about how Martin Truex had made an announcement he's going elsewhere next year. And some people might think, well, you're a lame duck driver. You're just going to sort of go through the motions the rest of the year. But that is not the case for Bono, Kevin Mannion, the crew chief there, and Martin Truex. They still want to win races. They have a great relationship, those two guys, that would like to go out on a winning note. Brian Vickers, he is getting quicker and quicker. Now, Vickers showing 4th overall on the speed chart, slowly climbing up the charts.
Yeah, again, Doc, probably put on tires. You know, looking at the speed of that last lap, it's probably on tires. The track is. It's got a lot of. It does have a lot of speed in it right now. I noticed a lot of shadows. The temperature's cooled off a good bit, so those cars are feeling good. We'll see how far he drops off on a long run. And you know, here at Indy, this time of day, you get past 6 o'clock at night, this track picks up speed. So again, you've got to look at the difference you drop off. From when you put new tires on, if you drop off a second in 10 laps and somebody else only drops off 0.8 of a second, you got to use that as a comparison. But you won't be racing this late tomorrow. We'll be done earlier.
Well, that's the reason the 42 car, Juan Pablo Montoya, parked his car. He said, you know what? What am I going to learn at this time of day? If we win this thing tomorrow, it'll be long over. We'll be celebrating right now at this time on Sunday night.
And that's exactly where that comes in, that experience of being here with the Indy cars. Chip Ganassi and Juan Pablo have been here before. You know, in 1994, we didn't even run happy hour because of that. I think we ran the race at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock in the morning, and we chose not to run happy hour because we knew at 4 o'clock in the afternoon the track was going to be completely different. And you can see that Juan Pablo and the Chip Ganassi Racing Stable, or Earnhardt Ganassi, have parked that car for the same reason.
Remind you, coming up at 7 o'clock, top of the hour on ESPN, will be a Sports Center special at the Brickyard. We'll update all the great stories and talk about what some of our experts think is going to happen here on Sunday afternoon. Bill Elliott, one of the big surprises today in qualifying, and a pleasant surprise for the Wood brothers. There's the 21-year, the car number 21, the 53-year-old driver and former winner here. And you made a nice comment when he qualified. You said, you know, watch how smooth Bill Elliott is. That's one of his strengths. He is so smooth the way he handles that steering wheel.
He really is. Bill is a guy that he loves this place, loves to come here, and he works again on rolling the center of that corner. He's a momentum driver. If you watch him now, you don't see him move his hands on the steering wheel a little bit, or I'm sorry, a lot. He doesn't really like a loose car, but he doesn't like a tight car either. He does not like to move his hands around on the steering wheel. And really happy for the Wood brothers. Running a part schedule. They come here. They're very competitive. Great day for them, too.
So as the happy hour sort of winds down here, almost every car that thinks they need to a little more dialing in on the racetrack. Very busy racetrack here in the final minutes of practice. Jimmy Johnson is atop the speed charts. He is back on the track. Vickers is there. Logano. We just showed you, you know, the 21 of Elliott, and here is Jeff Gordon trying to write his own page in the Brickyard 400 history.
You know, obviously running this late, running this many laps, not happy with that car yet. He'll keep working on it. He knows that he's got to come a little bit, come back from a little bit further in traffic than the other guys, but certainly still a huge threat to win this race. And Dave, have you got anything down there on Jeff?
Well, Ray, first I have a question for you. Where do you learn more about your race car, in the garage or on the racetrack?
Well, in both places. You've got to take the information you learn while being out on the racetrack and make those changes in the garage.
All right, I'll buy that answer. Well, right now, Steve Letarte has told his driver, I know it's not perfect, buddy, but I feel like we need to stay on the racetrack right now until the end of the session, drive it straight in, go to the hauler, and talk about it. So they sacrificed some more garage time, some more lengthy changes, filled it with fuel, put fresh tires on it, and Steve Letarte wanted Jeff to stay out there till the very end, till the checkers and reds come out, and then just talk about that final long run and what changes they can make overnight.
And Doc, the reason he's probably doing that is he's made some minor front end changes or some minor shock changes, and he needs a good fuel reading, and he needs a good reading on wear off that last set of tires.
We are in the final 5 minutes of happy hour, and look at this massive facility. You see all those race cars on the racetrack, the most cars we have seen on the track during happy hour all afternoon.
And it's, again, doing a great job. Goodyear really needs to be commended on what they've done with this tire. These guys have run session after session, no problem. We started qualifying on a green track, putting the rubber down. I really think that the work that they've done and the miles that they've tested are going to provide us some good racing tomorrow, Doc.
We talked about the fact that with the exception of the first time they came here in 1994, this may be the most anticipated Brickyard 400 in this race's history because of the great tire we've got now from Goodyear, the double file restarts, and all the incredible stories up front in qualifying with Mark Martin, Bill Elliott, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Montoya, the Indy 500 winner, and the fact that you got Jeff Gordon starting mid-pack in 22nd, and one of the fastest cars in the field now, Carl Edwards, back in 41st. And oh, by the way, there's Denny Hamlin, who came close to winning it a year ago, and as of right now, he is the fastest car in happy hour.
Well, Mike Ford, again, has got that set up, and as he said before, finally, well, bad news for everybody else. They're making that thing better and better.
Going to remind you, coming up next here on ESPN2 is NHRA qualifying from Sonoma. And coming up next over on ESPN, the Sports Center special at the Brickyard. That's where, by the way, Andy Petrie and Dale Jarrett have been. You'll be there with Alan Bestwick and updating what's happening here tomorrow. And of course, coming up at 7:30 Eastern time on ESPN, live coverage of the NASCAR Nationwide Series at O'Reilly Raceway Park. And if you missed the story earlier, it is an 18-year-old on the pole at ORP, Trevor Bain, the young man from Knoxville, Tennessee, only his 7th career start. He will lead the field down over there. Well, now the race for speed is on. Ryan Newman now atop the speed charts.
Yeah, that's bragging rights. All right, boys, let's put some stickers on and go home and up on top of the chart. The track's getting incredibly fast. Putting some new tires on, and they're laying down some laps.
Everybody wants to be known when they go to bed tonight was I was the fastest of the fast on the final laps of practice. Not only is it great for media coverage, but it's great. It's a little pump for the team, a little pep in your step, and maybe a little confidence boost for that driver.
Well, it used to be good for the car owner. You think about, hey, man, my car was fastest in practice, but his car owner's driving another car, so I don't know if it's good to beat him or not.
You know, and Tony Stewart was so gracious. He said, you know, I would love to win this, and I've won it twice, but he said, I would also like to see Ryan Newman win it for the first time, because Tony Stewart was saying, you know, it would mean that I have won at Indianapolis now as a car owner.
Yeah, and you know, he's got a good shot because the 39 car has been very, very consistent throughout this. And we know that Ryan, as I said, he knows how to go fast. And I think that working with Tony's taught him how to be use a little bit more finesse to take care of his tires and take care of his car. So he'll certainly be a threat tomorrow.
Who will it be? Who will win the 16th running of the Brickyard 400? We invite you to join us for live flag-to-flag coverage, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series at the Brickyard, presented by Golden Corral. Beginning with NASCAR Countdown, so many wonderful stories. Alan Bestwick and the crew will set the stage, and of course we will have live flag-to-flag coverage, 400 miles, 160 laps. Now, coming up next here on ESPN2 is NHRA Qualifying. Coming up next over on ESPN, it's a Sports Center special at the Brickyard. Alan Bestwick, Andy Petrie, Dale Jarrett, and the gang. And of course, following that at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we take you to the NASCAR Nationwide Series race over at O'Reilly Raceway Park with Marty Reed and all the guys. Well, that pretty much wraps up happy hour from here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And now, momentarily, they will pull these cars into the garage area and sit and watch and wait to see what's going to happen here on Sunday. It has been a long day at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It began with overcast skies and rain and a lot of watching and waiting, and then some bumpy laps during qualifying. But it all ended up here with the guys getting their cars dialed in finally during the final practice session of happy hour. And now they sit and watch and wait. Who will it be? Who will be the latest winner in the 16th running of the Brickyard 400? So long, everybody, from Indianapolis Motor Speedway.